and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, please join me in a moment of silence as we reflect on those serving the United States Armed Forces, both past and present. The elected leaders of the state of Pennsylvania and elected leaders of our nation. We have much to be thankful for in our community. Please be seated. All right. Item 3, the Board of School Directors met on the following dates in executive session to discuss items in one or more of the following areas: personnel or legal matters. October 5th, 2020 at 5 p.m. And then tonight, October 19th, 2020 at 6 p.m., which is why we are a little late. Item 4, superintendent's report.
Good evening. And so we will begin this part of my report by hearing from Student Body President Dante DiNardo. And so today, everybody, was Dante's first day of school in person.
Yes, it was. Great.
Was it good day?
Yeah, it was a really good day. It felt really good to see everyone, see the freshmen, see the teachers. And I think everyone put in a very good system for keeping everything safe and following protocols and whatnot. So overall, 10 out of 10 day. 10 out of 10 day.
Well, we are happy to be able to be bringing students back. Now, this month, did you get the reports from the elementary schools too?
Yes, I have everything this month.
All right, so why don't you go ahead and share your report with us?
All right, so I'll start with the high school. We have a lot from the high school this month. First off, the high school introduced the Wildcat Court, which is kind of like it replaces the homecoming court, from my understanding. They introduced the Wildcat Court to the student body through the class meetings, email communication using Canvas. On Friday, October 23rd, the entire student body will cast one vote each for whoever they feel represents the high school with school spirit and school pride. The senior on the Wildcat Court with the most votes will be named leader of the pack for 2020. The Wildcat Court and the naming of the leader of the pack will take place through a Google live streaming event at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, October 28th. Mock trial had many new members show up to the first meeting of the year on September 30th. All competitions will be held virtually this year, and our team is awaiting case material delivery on November 1st. Officers this year are the president is Ava Lasmanis, Vice President Kirsten Longworth, Secretary Grayson Kurth, and Treasurer Karen DeFusco. The school counseling department has held virtual senior information Q&A sessions, virtual NCAA night, and virtual financial aid night. We will be moving into virtual evening hours for senior and junior parents in the coming months. Next up, we have Best Buddies. Best Buddies held interviews for virtual peer buddies on September 30th and the virtual match party on October 7th. Students in the Life Skills and Community Connections program, along with a few other recommended students, are now matched with a peer buddy to provide social interactions, peer modeling, and peer mentorship. Associate members are still encouraged to join our Best Buddies program for virtual opportunities. So Wildcat ambassadors volunteered to come to the school on October 12th and 15th to assist with the 9th graders who went in last week and were new to the building, and they helped them with finding their way around the school, to classes on their first days in the high school. And we say thank you to the ambassadors for that. On Saturday, October 10th, 8 NJROTC cadets volunteered time for community service by parking cars at the Hay Creek Apple Festival. 4 cadets also participated with the color guard at the football game Friday, October 9th. The 7-Ups are happy to welcome 6 new members, which is good. Rehearsals have started and choreography has been adjusted for social distancing. The winter concert will feature music from holiday cartoons and will be presented by video. So make sure you tune into that. Anchor Club is accepting new members. Join for community service and projects focused on brain health and safety. There's a music project to improve quality of life for seniors at a local nursing home coming up. Anchor Club also offers scholarship opportunities, and members are presented with a unique graduation cord as seniors. Next up, the high school's resident campus crew, Mr. Yoder, is starting up student tech team. Students will be on hand during their study hall periods to help answer quick questions virtually or in person from students who may be having issues in navigating the course room, submitting assignments, etc. Keep an eye out for future information, and that will be very helpful to some of the new students in our district and freshmen. The National English Honor Society is now accepting applications until October 30th. Interested juniors and seniors can access the application materials through the OJR High School students page in Canvas. Lastly, the high school band recognized all senior band members along with their parents on Friday, October 2nd at a special performance night in our stadium. An additional performance night was held in the stadium for all band parents on Friday, October 16th. All performances of the band have been live streamed virtually for those who could not attend. And the band is also now attending football games, which is really, really cool. Now moving on to the middle school. 7th grade students have returned to blended learning at the middle school. Middle school sports are well underway, as well as a virtual school fundraiser. Virtual kickoff assemblies were held on October 7th. Student pictures will be taken on October 20th and 23rd, both during the school day and after school, with retakes later in November. Advisors are exploring the best way to run their clubs so that both virtual and in-person students can participate as well with an eye on safety. Students have been invited to sign up for student council as well as our Leo Club and our 2020-2021 theater production. So I'll start with the elementary schools. East Vincent, their students, East Vincent Elementary School students grades 3 through 6 have had the opportunity to serve on the Kids for Change, KFC for short, Student Leadership Committee. Kids for Change is a way for student leaders to provide ideas and feedback regarding East Vincent, building goals for student growth and achievement, social emotional learning, diversity and climate, and culture. To be a KFC member, students must submit a letter of intent, do their best work, and model the Go Cats behavior. Letters of intent include why students want to be part of the KFC leadership group and how students plan to make a positive impact on the East Vincent community. The 4th grade East Vincent students from Mrs. Laubenstein's Cyber Academy class were recently featured in the community section of the Mercury for their timely lesson about Ruth Bader Ginsburg and her impact. The students created their own collars and shared what was worth fighting for from their perspectives. Now, French Creek. French Creek students enthusiastically returned to the building this past week. Students enjoyed special events leading up to the big day, including a First Friday Crazy Hair Day and a socially distant PTA-sponsored ice cream social. Students and staff are now looking forward to a socially distant trick-or-treat night. Students will be encouraged to wear their Halloween costumes as teachers and staff pass out prepackaged goodie bags to families drive through the parking lot parade. Families are encouraged to bring non-perishable items that will be donated to the North Coventry Food Pantry. And that leads me into North Coventry. So North Coventry students were recognized for their exceptional performances and being respectful throughout the day. North Coventry's Virtual Run 101 has been meeting on Thursdays at 3:30 p.m. for a short warm-up together, and then the students are off and running. North Coventry students celebrate Start with Hello. This week, the boys and girls were encouraged to reach out to the other students so no one felt alone at North Coventry. The students did a great job at supporting each other. West Vincent, on Thursday, October 8th, the West Vincent PTA hosted a virtual family art night. Our West Vincent students were led through a virtual art project via Zoom while they watched and created from home. This is year 12 of the All Pro Dad program at West Vincent's chapter, and West Vincent's chapter continues to be one of the biggest in the country, and is the biggest in the state. The first breakfast of the year will be held virtually on Thursday, October 22nd, 2020, from 7:15 to 7:45 a.m. The topic of discussion will be purpose. Mrs. Beaver, the art teacher, and Mrs. Day, a third grade teacher at West Vincent, are busy getting student council underway. The student council focuses on 3 important tenets of school community, which include spirit, social, and service. Students who are interested in being class representatives are currently campaigning for a vote. Voting will occur on Wednesday, October 21st. And lastly, West Vincent's librarian, Mrs. Vannemon, is accommodating our cyber students with curbside pickup. Students are given the opportunity to order books through Destiny, then picking up outside the building. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dante. Couple of items for everyone. Maybe I don't need these tonight. So as you may be aware, the Chester County School Districts were awarded additional CARES Act grant money. ONJ received $353,000 that will be utilized to pay for the Elementary Cyber Academy and additional PPE. The amount of money each district received was based on their Title I population. Lately, the media has been filled with reports of increased cases in COVID. I thought the board would find it helpful to know that each school nurse tracks our students and staff that are symptomatic, presumptive positive, and positive to assure that they are quarantining for the appropriate amount of time. As of Friday, there were no reports of positive COVID cases in any of our schools, and our nurses are currently monitoring 3 presumptive positive cases. It's important to note that amidst the reports of increased COVID cases in our country, state, and county, according to the Chester County Department of Health's latest report, the ONJ Roberts School District has been in the moderate transmission range for the past 4 consecutive weeks. Last week, I shared the district's equity action plan during the Pupil Services Committee. This plan is now posted on our website. As reported during that meeting, Mrs. Prophet and I would be attending the Pennsylvania School Board Equity Summit, which we did. The day-long summit included student voices, panel discussions, and a keynote from Dr. Sonia Douglas Herford of Columbia University. And we hope to be able to share that keynote. It was very impactful. My biggest takeaway, though, I think from this very important work focused on equity and anti-racism was that of listening to our students and listening to our students first on this topic. I believe that Mrs. Prophet will be sharing information later on today about next steps. The flu clinic was a huge success today. We had over 600 people attend. So if you missed out, please check. There are other flu clinics scheduled in Chester County. Just a reminder that on election day, both North Coventry and the middle school are serving as election locations. And so those students will be learning virtually for those 2 days. And so they will be synchronous with their teachers. This evening, also, there were 2 additions to the health and safety plan. We did add details about how election day will be handled at both of those schools. And we've also added the information on parent-teacher conferences. We will be monitoring the transmission ranges as we get closer to parent-teacher conferences. Right now, we are hoping to be able to offer parents both in person and virtual. And then also tonight, the board will be voting on our district goals, which were reviewed at the committee of the whole meeting. So tonight we have some students to recognize. It's been a while since the board has had students to recognize. So when I call your name, if you are attending, if you will raise your hand, if you'll use the raised hand feature, Mr. Sanfrancesco will unmute you. And so we are looking tonight to recognize our National Merit Scholarship semifinalists and those that have received letters of commendation. So I'm looking for Madeline Berger, Ava Lasmanis, Brian Zarkowski. Brian, you'll probably have to say that name again for me. Damian Horn, I know he was going to try to make it. He thought he might be late. Anya, is it Kakar? Anya, you have to say that also. And Rachel Towler. So if you will raise your hand, I saw some family trying to photobomb there behind some of you. Yep, more family members trying to photobomb. All right. So thank you for turning off your mics so that we could see you. Madeline said she wasn't going to be able to attend. So Ava, give us a wave so everybody knows who you are, Ava. Wonderful. Brian, how do you say that last name?
Zarkowski.
That's pretty close. So thank you, Brian. Did Damien make it? He said he was going to be late. Maybe I didn't even say her first name right. I think I said Anya, but I don't think that's right now.
It's Ayana.
And say your last name for us, honey.
Kakar.
Okay, that part I got right. And Rachel Towler. Give us a wave, Rachel, so that the school board knows who you are. I know Rachel from North Coventry days. All right, so school board, little information here for you. Now I do have to put on my glasses, unfortunately. All right, so the National Merit Scholarship Program is an academic competition for recognition and scholarships that began in 1955. High school students enter the National Merit Program by taking the preliminary SAT National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test, a test which serves as the initial screening of approximately 1.5 million entrants each year, and by meeting published program entry participation requirements. So this evening, we are congratulating our semifinalists, Madeline, Ava, and Brian. And then we also are congratulating Damien, Anya, and Rachel, who received letters of commendation in recognition for their academic, it says for their outstanding academic promise. So congratulations on behalf of the school board. We are so proud of your accomplishments, and we hope that you are proud of yourselves. So thank you very much.
Yay.
Hey, no, it's not the same virtually as in person. You will receive a certificate of recognition from the school board, and we are so very proud of you. So thank you for joining us tonight. You're welcome to stick around. It doesn't get much more exciting than this, but you are welcome to continue to join us for the rest of the meeting. Madam President, this concludes my report.
All right, thank you.
Congratulations, guys.
That's awesome. All right, we're going to move on to item 5, which is public comment on agenda items. Information, proposals, and statements from individuals or delegations pertaining to items on the agenda. Speakers are to indicate your name, township of residence, and the item on the agenda to which your comments are addressed. Speakers will be limited to no more than 3 minutes. Please understand that this is not a time for dialogue with the board. Rather, the board will listen to all comments and consider them in future deliberations. And then also just please remember, if you have a question for the school board, you can also email us at schoolboardmembers@ojrsd.net and you will receive a written response. Just for a guideline for anyone that would like to make a comment, please use the raise hand function. And when it is your turn to speak, please state your name and township of residence.
Mrs. Prophet, I just would like to clarify, because we do have some people joining us this evening that want to comment on the naming of the training room. That's the second public comment. This first public comment is on agenda items only.
Thanks.
All right, Mr. Sanfrancesco, if you would take over.
Sure. Heather, please state your full name and township of residence, please.
Hi, Heather McCurry, East Coventry. I don't know why I'm always first here, but anyway, I wanted to speak on policies 710, which was the policies for first review, which was the elimination of the board communication. And I was concerned during the meeting the other night why you guys are doing this, because I don't think some of you understand the purpose of board communication, which was to report. Ms. Crumrine could say, for example, I received 200 emails regarding support for naming the athletic training room after Mr. Pearson. So with the elimination of that board communication report, nobody will know any of those people sent that in, and I don't think that's fair. And I didn't like the talking about reducing the time either down to 1 minute. This board worked very hard to make sure that we had public comment at all of the meetings. And with that, the second thing I want to talk about is 13.1, the approval of the district goals. These attachments were not anywhere on the website on the board meeting items. They weren't on the CAL. They weren't on the CAL meeting when you did it, and they weren't on the agenda for tonight. So it's pretty hard for public to comment on the goals when they can't even see them. I know to look, because I was on the board, I looked under the drop down about us, super, and where the goals were. However, I don't think most people know that. So I don't think it's fair tonight to approve the goals when the public did not get a chance to see the goals. And the one goal that I'd like to briefly comment on is the communications and community relations. I think that it's well past time to get a website and to use the district Facebook and to stop posting district announcements in the OJR parents and community site and the censorship site, because those sites are very political now, and district employees have rules and policies where they should not be engaging in politics under school board policies and also under the federal Hatch Act, and I think it's Title 71 in the Pennsylvania Code. I think it would be fair to the people in this community who make up both parties in our district that they have a fair way to express concerns and opinions regarding district activities. And that also includes for people that do not have children in the school anymore, because about 80% of the people in this district do not. So I would request that the website get fixed, and some way we use the district Facebook and not the other sites any longer. Thank you.
Mrs. Crumrine, are you able to make the district goals active in board docs this evening?
I can certainly check on that.
I think that was an oversight on Mrs. Kenny's part. We definitely discussed them being visible for the public as part of tonight's report. So perhaps you will be able to do that.
Mrs. Prophet, the next person is Miss Denise Wilson.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Denise Wilson from East Vincent Township. I am speaking on agenda item number 13.1, district and superintendent goals. These goals are how the district moves ahead and how the superintendent is evaluated. I have looked at the physical responsibility goals, and they are horrible. These are items that should have already been done. Montgomery County gave out grant money 2 months ago. Why did your board members not pursue money from Chester County for OJR earlier? We have asked you about it repeatedly in the meetings. There is also the goal on the here to raising our taxes again, as in not to exceed another 3% increase. When does the nonsense stop? Mr. Friel, is as finance chair, should be ashamed. After 4 short months of board service, you have recommended an increase to the taxes for the first time, and now you are doing it again. Instead of working for the school district and living up to the fiduciary oath you took, you have been spending all your time campaigning. During the past 2 weeks, we have gotten no less than 21 mailers featuring your state rep run Facebook ads
I
and
think
new
this is going
TV
beyond.
ads.
Ms. Wilson,
board agenda
um,
item. So
I ask that you limit your comments to the agenda item and not to a personal attack against Mr. Friel or any other board member.
And we have been told that you have no plans to resign if you win. I hope the people of the district understand that they will go, when they go to vote, that the only person they ever.
again, this is
Sanfran, you're going to have to end this public comment. This is not an agenda item only.
I mean, come on, guys. This is not
Mr. Friel, I don't believe you even need to
Committee people
respond. It
making
was
speech.
inappropriate.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mrs. Prophet Colleen Blute. Mrs. Blute, you are unmuted.
Thank you. My name is Colleen Blute. I'm from North Coventry Township, and the 2 previous speakers kind of took most of my fire, but I'm here regarding agenda item 13.1. When all of you were elected to the board, many of you stated that you were going to be transparent. Being transparent is not being addressed by the board. Those goals that you are voting on tonight, I didn't see them in an attachment for the board agenda, nor did I see them referenced on the board agenda. I looked at the first page of your website and they were not there. Are you hiding them from the public? If so, you are not being transparent. And you know that the public needs to understand what you, the board, are providing for the students, their children, and this community. If this is too much for you to understand, then I think you need to go look at another board that knows what they're doing and follow their suit. Thank you very much and have a good evening.
Mrs. Crumrine, were you able to activate the goals on the board?
They're working on that right now. Then we'll
For
be
the pub-
activated very shortly.
The public to be able to see?
Yes. I mean, they will be very shortly. I went to do it and somebody was already working on it. So.
Okay, because these were presented at the committee of the whole and the recording is available for the public to see. But if the board prefers they be represented here tonight, they can be represented.
Maybe Dr. Lloyd, as we, what item number is that? 13.1. Board discussion. Can we put them on the screen for the public to view and maybe just do a highlight of the titles?
We can do whatever you prefer. We can do whatever you prefer. I apologize. We thought that they were activated and they're not. So.
Okay, we can discuss in board discussion because it's before item 13.
Okay, they are not on the district's website because they're a draft and they don't go on the district's website until you finalize them. And so they will go live after they're voted on, but we can present them again if need be.
Thank you.
Mrs. Prophet, that's the end of public comment.
Okay, thank you. So I think the main item that was brought up, we've addressed. The one thing, and Dr. Melnizek, if you can touch on this in your L&P update, what our intentions is with the communications policy or removing board communications from that one specific policy. If you can update on that, that would be great.
Yep, got it.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to board committee reports and then just an update for the public. We are putting closure to our committee goals from the past school year. So Mr. Sanfrancesco is going to be projecting each specific committee's goals. We are not
creating new goals for this year because we felt like the goals from the school district were pretty hefty for this year, and we wanted to support these goals in all of the committees. So the board made the decision not to create individual goals because we all felt like we all needed to march forward with these current goals. But I'm going to move on to the first, hold on, 6.1, Committee of the Whole. A meeting of the Committee of the Whole was held on October 5th, 2020 at 6 p.m. via Zoom, and the following committees met at that time: the Curriculum and Instruction Committee and the Finance Committee. Item 6.2 is Buildings and Grounds Committee. Mrs. Booth.
Yes, I see Mr. Sanfrancesco has the Buildings and Grounds 2019 and 20 goals up on everybody's screen. First goal was to host an O&J Roberts community gathering with the district's 7 townships, school board, and district administrators. Spring 2020 community gathering was postponed due to COVID-19. Stay tuned. As soon as we are able to gather safely, we will reschedule. The second goal was to open the East Vincent Library 1 to 2 days per week during the 2020 summer for the O&J Roberts community. And again, as a result of COVID-19, all district facilities, buildings, and grounds were closed to the public this summer. We certainly hope to open the East Vincent Elementary Library to the public 1 to 2 days per week during the 2021 summer break. Number 3 was to explore options for the district warehouse. With a framework of consolidating district-owned properties while promoting operational efficiencies, the committee and district have been exploring locating a district-wide services center in the educationally abandoned old East Coventry Elementary Center. The intent is to retain the library for district and community use, as well as maintain the existing soccer fields and playgrounds as well for community use. We're presently working through cost estimates to determine this project's feasibility. The Buildings and Grounds and Finance Committee are in the process of scheduling a joint public workshop to discuss this ongoing topic. Number 4 was successor agreement for the Student Transportation Services. An agreement with G&L Transportation was finalized in the fall of 2019 for the next 4 fiscal years through June 30th, 2025. State safety and fiscal responsibility were priorities for the contract renewal. All school buses now have GPS, new cameras, and are now all titled O&J Roberts as opposed to Gross. For a short committee update, moving forward in a green approach to energy conservation, we will embark on a second exploration of an ESCO qualifier, energy consumption reduction, to produce operational energy efficiencies with the assistance of available grants. The PTA-funded EV pavilion is completed, awaiting grass seed to stabilize ground. Stonework will be added to the columns for continuity with the EV building, but it is totally functional as it is. The district is diligently pursuing the East Coventry Facilities Update Project closeout, which guarantees acquisition of all warranties. There are no Buildings and Grounds agenda items on this evening agenda. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mrs. Booth. We're going to move on to item 6.3, which is the Chester County Intermediate Unit. Mrs. Munson.
Yeah, this is short and sweet because our last meeting was September 16th, which was before our last O&J Roberts meeting, and our next meeting is this coming Wednesday at October 21st at 7:30 p.m. So nothing to report today. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 6.4, which is Curriculum and Instruction Committee, Mrs. DiMarino.
Okay, first our goal, oh yeah, I thought I was muted, sorry. Our goals for the 2019-20 are up there on your screen. They were just 3 of them, exploring the option to apply for flexible instructional days. And last year, if you recall, we decided we were not going to do this, but things changed with the whole COVID-19 pandemic, and we did apply to PDE or FID, and we were approved at the beginning of the school year, and now we can use up to 5 flexible instructional days per year for the next 3 years. The second one was to offer greater flexibility in our high school credits that they need for graduation. So instead of students needing 4 credits of math, they could transfer that to any academic elective course for graduation, and that was approved in the fall of 2019. And then finally, to prepare new board members for service regarding the curriculum committee. And I'm one of the new members that started in January with the board workshop on the curriculum revision cycle, the supervision program, federal programs in the schools. And in addition, the board has seen students, teachers, and administrators share information about the instructional program in all the schools. Our last meeting was as part of the committee of the whole on October 5th, and we did continue to discuss the FID, the flexible instructional days. And we are scheduling one of those for November 3rd. And this just impacts the middle school in North Coventry. I know we already talked about this, so I won't go into detail, but that is because those schools will be used as a polling place, and they will have a remote synchronous day, those students. Also at that meeting, we discussed the blended and the cyber programs, and we had got an update from Mr. Smith. He discussed the elementary program and shared information for parents who would like to make a change from blended to cyber or from cyber to blended. And these arrangements are in process right now. The students will be able to make these changes in the coming weeks. Also, Mrs. Amade spoke about the middle school students in both blended and cyber. She discussed the work that the teachers and administrators were doing with families when students were absent from their classes or not keeping up with their work. And finally, Mr. Richardson discussed the blended and cyber classes for the high school. He shared the options available for students to access their classes synchronously or asynchronously, and also talked about student attendance. Our next curriculum committee meeting is scheduled as part of the committee of the whole on Monday, November 9th at 6 o'clock. And this agenda will include changes to the program of study for the high school and professional development for teachers. And that's it for curriculum.
Thank you, Ms. Marino. Item 6.5, which is the Finance Committee, Mr. Friel.
All right, thank you, Leslie. The 2019-20 goals, budget and 3-year projections. The school board approved the 2021 budget, including the 3-year projections. You know, obviously that's where we follow PDE and the Act 1 timelines. But as a result of COVID-19, you know, we had some challenges with the budget and how we were going to do it moving forward. And if you were seeing any of our finance, I think we had 9 finance meetings this year. We talked a lot about spreading any money that we save from the closures over 3 years, because we projected a 3-year deficit in revenue funding at the school district level. So, you know, great job from the finance team and the administration who, you know, put that together. The 5-year capital budget, the feasibility study was reviewed and used to project that 5-year capital budget, and a plan was put together. And as we turn to January, the change because of COVID is a couple of things that were originally in planned for this year were pushed from a capital point of view in the future because of COVID. The other big, I think, you know, projection here, I'm sorry, our goal here was the renewal of the Teamsters contract, the collective bargaining agreement. And because of COVID, again, looking at the finances, what the school board and the administration, along with working with the Teamsters, who were very accommodating to us all to get together to do a 1-year, you know, extension of a contract, or actually it's a new contract, but it's for 1 year. So we figure out what the actual impact and the length of COVID's impact on the school and how it will impact the school. So, you know, it was great that they worked with us and everybody was able to collaborate and work together there. Prepare new board members for service, you know, Act 55 training, as I think Mr. Marino mentioned, and I was one of those folks as well. And the admin team and our finance team did a great job when we came on, you know, going through an onboarding program and putting this all together to try to get us up quickly before all the wheels fell off the bus with COVID and stuff there. The other thing in terms of the regular finance committee, the only thing to report is last school board meeting, obviously, we approved the senior tax rebate program, which is income tested for senior citizens and those on fixed income to apply for a property tax rebate. It's modeled after another tax rebate program that the state of Pennsylvania puts out. And that is probably live tonight. I'll ask Mrs. Crumrine to let us know if that's up on the website, the application for that. But the applications will be taken November and December for this year. Those eligible can apply for that and get that in place. And then we're going to have a meeting of the Finance Committee in November at some point. And maybe we can either talk about it tonight in board discussion if everybody's here and we can agree on a date that makes sense. I know November is a tough month. So if we want to bring that up under board discussion, we can maybe all agree on the date and public can know about it as well at the same time. And that's all I have, Leslie, for our report. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Item 6.6, Legislative and Policy Committee, Dr. Melnizek.
All right, well, our goals for Legislative and the Policy Committee are kind of, even though it was a yearly goal, these are kind of ongoing goals every year. The first one was to complete a 3-year review of our policies and to work with the PSBA and their recommendations for updates with policies and implementation with new policies. And also, whenever a board member has any questions about a policy, we've been going over them in our various meetings. The second goal was to assist other board committees in developing and finalizing their needed operational and governance policies. And lastly, we did complete a board training for board members to increase our understanding of PSBA, which I was part of that training, and I've learned a lot. Okay, so those are the goals. As far as other information, we did have a Legislative and Policy Committee meeting last Monday, October 12th rather. And at that time, we reviewed 4 policies which are being presented for their first reading under item 7.10. These changes to these policies, as mentioned, involve removing board communications as an agenda item. These policies are also discussed about updating lesson plans, revising immunizations and communicable diseases, and also clarifying the use of school facilities. Going back to the first one where we eliminated board communications from the agenda. That part of the agenda was really for us as board members to know what information came into Mrs. Crumrine as far as communications. Nowadays, we get, we may talk about 4 communications at a board meeting for the month, but we are getting lots and lots of communications every day from the public. So it seemed to be kind of redundant to have her tell us what items were being sent to us, because we're all very aware of communications that are being received by the board in general. So even though that agenda item is gone, we are still getting all those communications and notifications of communications. That sound like a good explanation?
Do you mind if I hop in for a second?
Hop on in.
Okay, so board communications was an antiquated agenda item. It was used for snail mail and mail that the board wasn't receiving, but our board secretary was receiving. It wasn't intended for items to be read from the public in a board meeting. If community members wanted to speak about something publicly, we have the option of public comment. They also have the option to contact us via email, which is what the majority of people do. We don't really receive anything in the mail. And looking at other school districts, they no longer have this board communications section in their agenda. So that was what the thought process was. It's not to eliminate the public from speaking in any way. It is just to keep us up to date with what current board practices are.
Leslie, would you mind if I add on one more point? And John?
Yes.
I believe, Heather, you mentioned in the comment that one of the concerns you had was that the public would not hear from Mrs. Crumrine the amount of emails we would get on certain topics. That does not occur today anyway, especially because Mrs. Crumrine is not on a great majority of our emails. She very rarely is on the communications that we get. So that is not the intent, the additional intent of that. It is meant for communications that would come in that we wouldn't see, for them to let us know about it.
Exactly.
And that doesn't mean, I think we also stated, sorry, that if we did receive something in the mail, we wouldn't get it. We would still get it.
Yeah.
She would give it to via
Mrs.
email.
Crumrine would give it to us anyway, send us an email about it. So we are aware of all the communications that are coming into us on a daily basis. And so the agenda item for a monthly meeting just seemed to be, like you said, antiquated. Okay, back to the last meeting we had. We were also working on 2 new policies that were recommended by the PSBA. And we'll be talking about them in more detail in future committee meetings. These are policy 833, which is involving educational equity, and also policy 146.1, which is discussing the trauma-informed approach. The purpose of this last policy is to direct staff to develop and implement a plan for trauma-informed approaches to education. So that's kind of a new way to look at of how we are educating our students, how trauma in their lives is also affecting, how they're performing. And that's it. Any questions about any of those last 2 things?
I just wanted to make one other statement. There is no change to public comment.
Correct. There's no change.
Okay.
People can speak as much as they want.
3 minutes.
And hopefully be respectful. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Manizak. Item 6.7, Personnel Committee, Mrs. Stutzman.
Hello, everybody. The goals for the 2019-2020 academic year for the Personnel Committee are up. The first one, Mr. Friel already spoke to. This is a joint goal between the Finance Committee and the Personnel Committee, and that was regarding the Teamsters contract, which was finalized this fall. The next one was around preparing board members in providing us new board members with the education we needed around specific things such as regulatory compliance affecting employment, education, profession, and core training. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I totally messed up that. Wait. Yeah, service providing education, learning opportunities in areas of governance or personnel action items. This was about new board member communication, education, which each of the committees had these on their goals and agenda when the new members came on board. And that was completed early February of 2020, February 10th. The third goal was to collaborate with the superintendent to develop a new Act 93 end of year evaluation tool that would align with the evaluation form that's submitted to the Pennsylvania Department of Education. This was put on hold due to the pandemic. And the updated evaluation tool was created and the task group met on several occasions, but it has not yet been introduced to all certified Act 93 members or widely implemented. So more to come on that. And then finally, strategically ensuring consistent and efficient operations through the review and evaluation of alignment of upcoming employment contracts by May 31st of 2020. All contracts are currently aligned, and the next Teamsters contract negotiation will take into consideration the contract length and this latest 1-year contract with existing employment agreements. The Personnel Committee has not met outside of executive sessions, so there's nothing else to report there. And Mr. Sanfrancesco, before you move on, would you mind clicking on the Extracurricular and Interscholastic Committee? So this is now an as-needed committee, but we did have a lot of goals for the 19 and 20 school year, so I wanted to report out on the work done by this group as well. The first one was about incorporating the new assistant director into the athletic department, and Dr. Cuthbert has successfully interviewed, hired, and trained Mr. Liacona into that position. Next was to create a condensed coach's handbook on a two-sided laminated sheet, essentially that's easy to use on a clipboard. And this also has been created and is an easy reference for coaches, and it has been distributed, and it's used in addition to the coach's handbook. Next was investigate the use of online services, including streaming of games with NFHS and athletic paperwork registration. The team investigated the use of NFHS, that's a mouthful, to stream games, but decided not to use them due to the fee structure that's required there. However, we have set up online streaming for all of our fall high school and middle school sports. And there's a big thank you there to Karen Sterner for helping with that endeavor. And then we also did switch to online registration with Family ID for athletics last spring, which has been a great add from a contactless perspective and a huge improvement. The next goal is around student activity promotion for 80+ clubs. And we did have club representation at back to school night, at 9th grade orientation, and at lunches in the beginning of the year to promote the clubs. Next was to evaluate the club pages, move to Canvas and establish Canvas pages. This will continue to evaluate this year. This has not been done, but it's in continual evaluation. Some of them do use it though, but it's not a holistic final. And then finally, adding separate Twitter accounts for activities, or a separate Twitter account for activities, and then using that to promote the clubs and to communicate. This has been done and is frequently used, posted from and reposted from other groups. It's OJRHS activities on Twitter, and it's been a great ad for promoting what's happening in the high school. And that is all I have.
So Lydia?
Yes.
For that one that you said was still ongoing, should we be considering transferring that into the technology and communications work stream?
We're not creating goals this year, so I would say
right.
No. I would say they're working on it. I mean, it's actively being worked on by Mr. I believe Mr. Richardson and Mr. Cuthbert.
Right, so I'm just wondering, so that we don't have to call an ad hoc committee meeting for extracurricular and interscholastic to report on it, if we moved that one goal over, then we wouldn't be creating any new goals. We're just simply creating a place where it could be reported upon.
Sure, no, that's fine. That'd be great. Or I can report on it in committee of the whole as well, or whatever we think is the best. Leslie, do you have any suggestions about where we would report out on that?
We can always add in extracurricular. I mean,
agenda item.
I think we made them add whatever needed, so I think that's fine.
Yeah, but thank you, Jennifer.
And then I just wanted to give a shout out to Mrs. Sterner for all of the work that she's been doing for live streaming. I know she had reached out to us, I think in the summer, asking how she can help. She could help, and she was connected with the AD. So shout out to her and all the parents that are stepping up to really help our students out this year. It's really appreciated. Definitely takes a community here to get things going. So then item 6.8, which is People Services and Special Education Committee. All right, so let's see. So the first goal was under student achievement during the 2019-20 school year, increase the efficiency and effectiveness of student programming for the purpose of increasing student growth as measured by the individual progress monitoring of students. During that school year, the special education staff and supervisors worked with IEP and 504 students, increasing student growth as measured by their progress monitoring. And then also with with students, parents, and staff on virtual instruction and IEP accommodations. The second goal was under safe and caring. During the school year, collaborate with the security and safety department to implement plans for safety and emergency response training for district stakeholders, specifically working with students with more intensive needs. During that school year, we collaborated with the security and safety department, and staff were trained in threat assessment, safe to say, crisis management plans, and then pupil services worked with behavioral specialists to assist students and parents, and IST teams for student programming. The third goal was under community and communication relations. During the school year, work collaboratively with various stakeholders to increase parent awareness of the special education programming in the district. The People Services Department staff held multiple parent meetings, as well as a number of staff trainings related to services and topics relevant to student success. So that was the goals from last year. So on my update, pupil services met on Monday, October 12th. Dr. Marchini was able to share more with us about the race inquiry project that each building is working on. The project involves a group of individuals reading through the book, Raising Race Questions by Allie Michael, coming up with a question around race and anti-racism for their school and researching this question. He was also able to share that there's a parent group from North Coventry working on this as well. We hope that these groups will be able to present to us, the People Services Department, in the winter with their findings. People Services also reviewed the equity toolkit from PSBA, which Dr. Lloyd had touched on. We had attended, Dr. Lloyd, Dr. Marchini, and I attended the virtual equity summit on the 13th to learn more about this. At the meeting, we also discussed delayed start and decided to hold on this topic until we were able to get all of our children back in the buildings. It's important to note that our administration team is willing to work with our students through their scheduling challenges. And finally, we continued our discussion about personal safety education for our staff, students, and parents provided by the Crime Victim Center. If you go to the agenda from our last People Services meeting, you'll be able to see the document that lays out the dates for each grade level that will be attending these classes, as well as the dates for our staff trainings and the dates for the parent workshops. The parent workshops are stewards of children, which will be holding virtual meetings on November 19th and December 15th from 6 to 8 p.m. Stewards of Children came out to ONJ a few years ago. I know I attended it. It was really impactful. And the goal for them is to help educate on how to prevent, recognize, and react responsibly to child sexual abuse. So really encourage parents to attend one of these virtual meetings. It was really, gave some really good suggestions and things to look out for. I also want to share that we are creating a webpage on the district website with our administration's action plan that was developed after the Kelly Hodge report. And on this page, the community will be able to see any of the changes and updates that were made to the action plan and any of the resources related to this. So I think one of this document that I mentioned that lays out the Crime Victims Center trainings, we'll add that to that webpage as well. And then on Tuesday of last week, we attended the Virtual Equity Summit from PSBA. This was an all-day presentation, as Dr. Lloyd had mentioned. And I think what was most impactful was the opening closing presentations. They did have breakout sessions throughout, and we kind of tag teamed to touch into different topics there. The opening presentation was probably incredibly eye-opening with a student panel, and they addressed a lot of the issues with equity in their own high schools. And I think what was also important to note was the students were from very different backgrounds and had varying experiences with what they believe to be barriers to their education. The keynote address in the closing presentation was conducted by Dr. Sonia Douglas Horsford, who's the Associate Professor of the Education Leadership Teachers College at Columbia University. She began her address with speaking about a Kenyan tribe and their greeting. And instead of saying, "How are you?" they say, "How are the children?" And the response that they seek is the children are well, because the children are our future and they should be our main focus as the community. She ended her keynote with another powerful quote. She said, "By reclaiming our commitments to the fact that education is a right, is a social culture and political process, a valued profession and calling, a collective good and responsibility, and the practice of freedom, we can make change. So there's a lot of great work that we as a board and as a school district can do. And I think it's time that we start this process. So Dr. Lloyd and I will be begin working on the equity toolkit, and we want to share our first steps in board discussion so we can discuss this and keep moving it forward. So that concludes my report. Going to move on to item 6.9, which is Technology and Communications Committee. Mrs. Munson.
All right, thank you. Well, 2020 presented a lot of technology and communications things that originally weren't on our goals list, but really kind of tied in with our goals. And I think we executed very well against them. So last school year started out with a goal number 1 to expand strategies to improve communication, some cross-market print, improved design and visibility. So on those that first part about expanding strategies to improve communication, we are continuing to investigate strategies. We did interview one company that uses a technological survey approach that was very interesting, and I believe that we're going to try to see if there's another competitor out there that we can compare. Also, with the redesign of the district website, the third bullet under that is still happening this year. There was a delay in the timeline due to COVID, but I'm looking very much forward to seeing that happen later this year. On goal number 2, highlight the impact of the one-to-one technology initiative. We had no idea how well it would be highlighted. When we had to transfer all of our students to virtual learning in the spring, it was extremely reassuring to already have that one-to-one technology for every student in the middle school and the high school. So that really did the work for us in terms of highlighting it. I don't think anyone is regretful that our community had already committed to that level of technology for our students. And then goal number 3, explore options for the extracurricular and athletics communication. That was done pre-COVID, that the exploration was created. There was a lovely spreadsheet that documented exactly who was using what tools. There was, I believe, even some consolidation where people were using compatible tools and were able to be moved onto a more standard tool. And so that goal number 3 will not carry into this school year. And we did not have any Technology and Communications Committee meetings other than the Committee of the Whole, and do not have any currently on the calendar. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we're going to move on to item 7, which is recommended routine matters. 7.1, motion to approve recommended routine matters 7.2 through 7.10. The board will make a motion to approve the following routine matters, which are items 7.2 through 7.9 as action consent items. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Mrs. Booth, I have a second from Dr. Melnizak. Any discussion?
Leslie, just that it always bothers me that acknowledgement of receipt, donations, contributions, and gifts is considered routine. So just to call it out, to say thank you to the Vanguard Matching Gift Program and to the middle school PTA and to Jennifer Hart for their generous contributions to the district. Thank you.
That is a good call out, John, and I will note that for next time.
Yeah, that's true. We did used to have that separately read. Not sure when that kind of fell through the cracks, but I think we need to re-energize that.
Definitely. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. All right. So just a call out. Item 7.1, which I read, says consent item 7.2 through 7.10. Recommended action says item 7.2 through 7.9. Mr. Subers, do I need to go back and have 7.10 approved? Sorry.
I would do that. I noticed that when you read your motion. I would have a separate motion at this point for 7.10.
All right, do I have a motion for approving 7.10?
So moved.
Mr. Friel, do I have a second?
Second. Take it, Jennifer.
Mrs. Munson.
I keep it going.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, item 8, approval of routine matters. 8.1, motion to approve routine matters 8.2 through 8.3. The board will make a motion to approve the following routine matters, which are items 8.2 through 8.3 as action consent items. I'm just double checking to make sure it's only 2 items. All right, good. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Deal, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Friel, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, item 9, board communication. Mrs. Kernright?
As discussed at length earlier, these are communications that I, as the board secretary, have been copied on, and the board has received all of these communications in detail, so I'm just going to summarize what the communications were. First communication was from Heather McCreary regarding the PAC guidelines. The second communication was from Heather McCreary regarding the PAC guidelines for spectators. The third communication was from Heather McCreary regarding PAC guidelines for football, cheer, and band. The fourth communication was from Janelle Grimm regarding the band. The fifth communication was from the OJR Music Parents Organization regarding the band. The sixth communication was from Heather McCreary regarding the band. And then another communication was received from Heather McCreary regarding the band. The eighth communication was from Molly Sheehan regarding her support of naming the training room after Ron Pearson. The ninth communication was from Paul Banks regarding his support of naming the training room after Ron Pearson. The 10th communication was from Heather McCreary regarding the band. The 11th communication was from Heather McCreary regarding new spectator guidelines that were released. The 12th communication was from Heather McCreary regarding the band and the third-party consultant report. And the final and 13th communication this month was from Tracy Patel regarding the third-party consultant report. And concludes my report, Madam President.
Thank you. And I just wanted to give a shout out to the MPO. They had emailed us in support of whatever we were able to do with the band at the time, which was at that point in time offering a separate band performance. And I think, just a recognition for our band students and all that they've had to go through, and obviously all of our athletes as well, but the band, because now they are able to perform at the football games. But thank you to everyone and their flexibility. Things are constantly changing, and we are always trying to do what's best for our students here. All right, item 10, which is board discussion. I apologize, everyone. I have a couple items. So if you will bear with me. So the first one, so I just wanted to say thank you to the community for the outpouring of support for Mr. Ron Pearson. We've received over 60 emails from his past students and coworkers, and I would like to ask the naming committee to please reconvene and then present their recommendations to the board.
Done. Will do, I should say.
All right. So we're going to touch on equity. As Dr. Lloyd and I stated, we attended the Equity Summit last Tuesday. It became very apparent to us that this is a full board task. The topics that were touched on touch all of our committees. We felt that was really important and would be most impactful for the full board to take part in this. That being said, we would like to expedite this first step a little bit. So if you go back to the toolkit, the first step is really identifying what equity means for our district. So we want to make sure that our stakeholders have insight on this. So Dr. Lloyd and I discussed a plan. We will be presenting the PSB definition of equity to our students and our staff and ask for what they believe the definition is. We will then share these definitions at the CAL meeting on November 9th and ask the public for their feedback. During one of the presentations that Dr. Lloyd attended, the presenter had a QR code for the public to scan. Once this was scanned, they could add in 3 words. And then these 3 words would project on the screen, basically into a big word cloud. And then we as a board will take these definitions from our public, from our students, from our staff, and form what is the definition of equity for Owen J. Roberts. Then we will take, the second step will be to take this definition on a listening tour for our students, our staff, and our parents, and we will discuss this definition, and we will ask important questions like, do you feel like you belong here? What would make you feel more welcome in our schools? It's important for us to understand what are the barriers for ensuring that our students are all in an equitable education. Did I touch on all of what we discussed, Dr. Lloyd? I think you're muted, sorry.
Getting feedback here tonight. And so, yes, that's correct. That another big takeaway, but we also presented this as part of our action plan, was to include all voices. But we were very touched at the Equity Summit by the voices of students. We also came away realizing that we needed to listen to all students when it comes to equity. We think that we do an excellent job at ONJ when it comes to special education services, but that's part of equity. We often don't hear from some of our minority groups, but we need to seek those students out so that we hear their voice and find out, do they feel welcome? Do they feel like they belong? Or what could we be doing? So our students, so Dante, we're going to be tapping you and student government because we're going to need your help on getting the word out to get everybody to participate in what do they think equity is, because we cannot move on to the policy work until we define this for our community. And that this is really the work of the whole board. This is not really the work of a task force, because we all need to work together to develop this definition, because you're going to, as part of governance, develop a policy. And then we set out doing other tasks. This work is probably going to take us all year alone, just to listen to people. And that really, we believe, is the work of all of us together.
Dr. Lloyd and Ms. Prophet, just a question. A lot of times when this topic comes up, it seems that Columbia University is a prominent driver of research and thought leadership and the like. Is it possible that we can look for additional sources to inform our viewpoint so that we make sure to get a diverse view of the issues?
Mm-hmm. And so Columbia University, National Race Institute, those are our leaders in our area. I definitely would like the board to hear the keynote that Mrs. Prophet and I heard. It's just so compelling. Because it's meant for educators. I'd like for our teaching staff to hear it as well, because it's a call to action. And you wanted to come the next day and get right to work after you heard that keynote.
Well, I think I called you right after it. I was like, Dr.
Right, yeah. So we will definitely be looking to others. These are hard conversations to have. And so we're going to need help in having them for sure.
And these listening sessions, we've also identified, the board is more than welcome to attend, and we would encourage it. We want everyone involved. We just really
with smaller groups. And so we were talking about doing them by school, by community. As we know, the schools across our district are so very different. They each come with their own personality. And so we were talking about smaller groups. That way, more of the board could participate in these small group listening.
Like I said, this is the start. So, other ideas, feel free to throw them out there. We can, obviously change as we go.
Have you guys put the sort of a date or framework for the listening tour in terms of like when you're thinking about, by the way, this is great stuff. I'm so glad you guys participated in this and brought it here. But do we have a timeline?
So we had talked about a brief timeline within the next month or so, I think it was after the COW meeting, Dr. Lloyd.
We want to reach out to the PTAs and PTOs in each of our schools to see if we can partner with them.
So I know that the race inquiry project would be presenting again in January. So we could look for that as a regroup on all of our listening tours. That really gives us like a month and a half.
So we'll develop a calendar, and then hopefully all of you can sign up for sessions that work for your schedule.
Good, thank
How
you.
do we access that keynote speech?
There's a lot, it's password protected. So I guess one of us will be sharing our login and password for it. I was trying to get them to send it to us, but I haven't heard from them yet, but it's so powerful.
Okay, great.
Any other questions on this? Any other comments? Okay.
I have a comment on a different topic. I don't know if we're done with that one, or did you have an additional one?
I got a couple more.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Deal. So next one, I know, Susan, you had wanted to touch, sorry, Dr. Loden, you had wanted to touch on this. It's really hard to keep the formalities going. So the Chester County Health Guidelines, if you wanted to touch on that.
I do. All right now, Mr. Sanfrancesco, I can share my screen. So fingers crossed, Dante, I do it right. Where is it? It's not there right now. I want to be able to share the district's website for you. And my screen is seeing some other things here. So let me just try again to share. There it is. So right now, you should be seeing our school district's website. And I wanted to start here just because people are often asking me where this information is. So I'm going to guide you to it. So when you're on our district's website, when you go to Fall Reopening Plan, and over here on the left-hand side, these are different components to reopening that we've presented publicly in one format or another. And I also often include links to these different components. So I want to go down here to levels of transmission, because this is a link that I frequently include in my communications with parents and with the board, because uh-oh, wouldn't you know? You often hear us talk about the 4 sources that we rely on. I'm going to go down to the Chester County. There's the CDC, there's the state's guidelines, but then there are the Chester County levels of transmission, because this is what we've been talking about in terms of the language that we're using regarding transmission levels and being at the moderate level in order to be able to move into blended, and that our district's data is currently in that moderate level that I have circled there. Parents often want to know, well, when can we fully reopen? And we call that phase 3, and that's when we move to low. But with so much in the news right now about the increased cases in our country, in our state, and in our county, the question is now starting to come back around as to how long can we stay open and when would we close? So I wanted us to have this conversation as a board about when we would close. We have had this conversation, but I want us to revisit it given the fact that we are in and out of a high level of transmission. And so I wanted to draw the board's attention to, this is the Chester County, remember this is the Chester County Health Department's chart that we're currently looking at. If we're in a high level of transmission, and last week the county was in a high level of transmission, I wanted you to notice that the county says we can be in a high level of transmission and still be virtual or blended. They are recommending that if we were to get as high as 80 positive cases per 100,000 people, that we would then notice we would go to very high and we would go back to full virtual. Or if this positivity percentage rate was between 7 and 10%, we would go to full virtual learning. And so I just want to make sure that the members of the board are comfortable with that. Our other choice would be to look at the Department of Health, the Pennsylvania Department of Health. And remember, they're not as conservative as the Chester County Health Department. The Pennsylvania Department of Health says you could get to up to 100 or 10% or greater than 10% before you would go to the back to full virtual learning or full remote learning. I'm not so sure people would be very comfortable with that. We don't really have a lot of direction from the CDC, except that they're calling it a high risk or a higher risk of transmission. But notice the CDC does not tell us whether we should be blended or whether we should be in person, whether we should be virtual. They don't give us any of that direction. That direction is really coming from the Pennsylvania Department of Health and the Chester County, with Chester County being the more conservative. So thoughts from the board members about when we are in this high level of transmission, and when, if we had to, would you want to see us go to virtual?
Well, as I'm looking at that, I recognize too, because I'm following these things a lot, that if you pop into a high or for one week or whatever, but our district itself is remaining low, I think we need to decide as a board if we need to immediately make a quick change, because it is very disruptive to the students. And if our district remains in, very low percent positivity, and, we have a low incidence rate per 100,000 in our district, is it really the right thing to do if we have a very brief, departure out of that moderate range? My personal opinion is I would like to see the kids in school if we feel that it's a safe environment for them. And that's not necessarily always going to be the case, that our entire county is going to be doing the same things we're doing or having the same results that we're having. I really would love to be talking more about how to get K-3 into school full time. As soon as, what metrics can we have to make that happen?
And to your point, Mrs. DiMarino, the other week, the week of October 12th, when we were supposed to come back, we had to look closely at where were those incidents in the county, because the county was high, the district was moderate, and we went with the districts. So other thoughts from other board members? I know Dr. John Melnicek, this is a topic that you feel very strongly about. What are your thoughts as far as when we would move, if we had to move back to full virtual?
Well, first of all, we've been sticking with the Chester County recommendation, so I would certainly hope we just stay with them and not jump to the Pennsylvania ones, because they're less conservative. In regards to the district being low, that's helpful, but if the district is low, but the district next to us is getting high, then I don't. It seems to be problematic to just go with only our data. So I agree that we have to kind of balance what the Chester County levels are, but we can't just go by what our levels are, because there's no walls between us and the next district, and the river is not going to protect us from Montgomery County either. So there's got to be a balance, but the first part is to stick with Chester County's recommendations, and then depending on what the numbers are for the county, if it's kind of borderline, then I think we should use the surrounding districts as helpful too.
Yeah, I'm going to be I have 2 points on this. One is I'd like to understand where staff and teachers feel about this as these rates climb, because I mean, it's going to be an important component. But I'm with John with this modification. I think, yeah, we're using the Chester County guidelines and guidance. I think we should stick with that. However, if the county's high and we're low, I think we could stay in school, provided that it's isolated in a part of the county. Like, for instance, we know that we had higher transmission rates last week that was isolated around the Westchester college kids, right? So we know the college kids in Westchester drove some of this. If we have that and we know that's the event and we look around, I would say, hey, come to the board and say, listen, we don't think this represents, even though the county is up, we think we can safely operate because it's isolated to the college kids, or it's isolated to these nursing homes, or it's isolated to Kennett, where we can reasonably be assured that we're not looking at community spread. However, if we're seeing community spread, I think we should then be conservative, go to virtual. So is that helpful in terms of, at least from my point of view, how would I approach it?
Yeah, I think so, because if the county is high down in the south, that's far away from us. Well, not far away, but it's a different population. So if that's the case, then we have to also look again at our surrounding districts, because A, that's a better indicator of what's going to happen to us, and B, those are probably places where our teachers and other staff are coming from and living from. So even though we are in O&J Roberts district, we have people coming in from outside our district, which if it's high, then again, we have to be more conservative and think about shutting down.
Just to clarify, we're still looking at 3 weeks in a row, either direction, correct? Unless we have outbreaks in our schools.
So if we don't have outbreaks in our schools, Mr. Deal, because if we have outbreaks in our schools, that's a whole different
right.
scenario. But without outbreaks in our schools, the Chester County's guidelines recommend if you're in the high range for 2 weeks to go to virtual.
But 3 weeks on the way down.
It was 3 weeks the other way. So, but what I know already is that just today's data is lower than what last week's.
Well, and that's my point is we had 8 cases out of 34,000 residents in this district last week, and it's been trending down. And Paul, I think your point is correct. If Chester County bounces above that 10%, say they're 11 or 12, and we're still 6 cases, 8 cases, so on and so forth, then I think we have to look strongly at that. And John, I don't discount what you said. I think we do have to be mindful about what's happening in the districts around us. And certainly there is a risk. Teachers could be coming from anywhere in the southeastern PA area, but I think to provide some consistency, I agree with sticking with the Chester County model. And I agree with kind of the things we've been looking at all along, but I hesitate to say we've got to bounce right away. That the first week, if it would happen that Chester County would bounce above 10, I would not be comfortable yanking our kids back out, because then we're waiting 3 more weeks to see if we can get them back in. And that kind of volatility isn't going to be good for anybody.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. And along with that, I do think that the whole idea of the percent positivity is something that we need to be careful and balance, because obviously that percent is based upon a moving variable of how many tests are run. And so to get a percentage, you know, if we in our district had, you know, 20 cases, but there were 1,000 tests run, it's a different story than if we have one case and there were only 100 tests run. So I think that we have to just be mindful of the way that percent positivity is not a constant variable. And so, like John said about having 8 cases in our district now, you know, looking at all that data as a whole and balancing it, and not just knee jerking anytime a number goes above, you know, whatever, I think is really important. Because as I said, I'm really concerned about the disruption to our students as well.
Well, and so the other aspect to this is the, you know, one case is one case, regardless of what the community spread is. And I feel confident that we have implemented the processes and procedures and protections for our teachers and our students that are most important. However, that's my feeling, and we are still, I think, in the early stages of the scientific data to back that. You know, we've had to put together a lot of inferences from what is available. I am really hopeful that over the next month or so, we'll get better information to tell us, can we continue to safely operate even within a higher level of transmission because we have the right measures in place. That's really, I think, key also, is getting that confidence in the measures that we've put in place. Exactly, yeah. So it appears that we've put all the measures and strategies in place that CDC is recommending.
We're here.
But it's still, you know, still feels like we need a little bit more time for data to come in on schools across the country and see what situations produce an outbreak and what situations suppressed an outbreak. Because, you know, like I'm still hearing conflicting reports out of different studies that are happening worldwide.
And Jennifer, I don't know if you saw, because the same is true in the other direction, right? Perhaps some of these guidelines develop so that we understand that maybe it is safer for younger children. Yale University just came out with a study of 57,000 childcare centers where they had some pretty good news on kids under 10. So maybe it moves the other way as well as they learn more about this virus, but I'd agree with you.
Right, exactly. And if we get some better scientific data that shows that we can keep our elementary schools open, even while we shut down our middle and high school in accordance with community transmission rates, you know, that I could see that being a possible evolution.
Well,
and I don't want to shut down avenues.
As long as we let the data drive our decisions, I think that's exactly what we should do. We should let the science and data drive our decisions on this and be smart about it. But I think, you know, and obviously I think, you know, how well our community, you know, keeping a sick child at home, not putting them in school, you know, the better we all, you know, do that and adhere to this, and the better we execute on the plan in the school and keep masks and the sanitation up. I think, you know, we have a really good chance of keeping these kids in class. So, you know, I think we're optimistic about it, and, you know, we'll keep it, let's just keep each meeting, you know, I think to Susan's point, how do we all feel about it is we might get more comfortable as the data and the science evolves on this. And we might learn how the mitigation, if it's in fact working to stop community spread, or we might work, you know, we might have bad news sometimes. I mean, I think we'll just have to allow the data to tell us, you know, what we're going to do.
I would have to agree with everything being said. And then I think, Dr. Lloyd, you had also mentioned to me that in your conversations with the Chester County schools, they were also looking at that, very high range, I think, in terms of when we would move to completely virtual. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So all school boards are having this conversation in Chester County now. As you know, I still continue to meet with Chester County superintendents twice a week. And so this is the conversation that they're having with their boards about this very high end of the range and moving to, that they definitely would move to the full virtual using the Chester County chart. What I see us doing is having these ongoing conversations. I know that you're aware of the data every week that I share that with you. And so I think we'll just continue as we're through this fall surge that they're calling it. And so we'll just continue to have this conversation about where we are in the county and then where we are locally.
Dr. Lloyd, just point of clarification. So I know we talked about with the kids returning to blended, do families still have the option to move from blended to cyber at any time? Or is that kind of limited as well? My thought here is if we're bouncing kids in and out and in and out and in and out, some families may say enough.
And so we have asked parents to commit it now, through the end of the marking period, if one way or the other. We did see a lot of high school and middle school students moved to cyber at the last minute before we opened up. And I think that that's, fueled by what we're seeing in our country and in our state right now, that they're just not ready. Our middle school and high school model is much more flexible to be able to go back and forth, where our elementaries are really more based on class size.
Fair enough.
So some of those are.
And one more thing that we might have to take into a related conversation rather than sticking here, and that is parents sending students with, a minor cough into school if they believe it's like allergy related or something. I think we have to make sure that our attendance policies are very clear about when parents should and should not be sending their kids into school. And I got the impression that there's still some confusion over that, because in the hybrid program, I believe if a student is online and working all day from home on a day when they were scheduled to be in the building, it's called an absence. It was my understanding that it's still called an excused absence, and maybe we need to come up with a new term for that situation to make it very clear to parents that that is okay to have your student working from home on a day when they were scheduled to be in the building.
And so I'm getting that same impression that you are, that there's still confusion about this. We've communicated this multiple times, but I think everybody's just so overwhelmed with what are we doing? Are we doing cyber? Are we doing hybrid? That this isn't, it's not information you need until you need it. So we are going to continue to communicate on that. There is other days, whether you call them COVID days or whatever, where the child is home, but they're still working. And so we don't want that to count against our students as a sick day. And so those days can be coded differently, but we need to, I get the same sense people are confused. We need to keep communicating that out. All right. Okay. I will keep you informed.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think as the data progresses and we see where our next move is, I think we definitely want to keep it, working on that 5-day-a-week plan. I know it's kind of a taboo topic as the numbers go up, but as an elementary parent, as a special needs parent, I think it's something we still need to keep in mind, because these kids really need to get back in
Let's
school.
be optimistic. Our numbers have been coming down. Don't forget that.
That's right.
Go knock on wood.
The O&J Roberts School District residents are doing their part.
Yeah, we are. We definitely are. I have to say, my 6-year-old that's like anxiety ridden went to school with a mask on all day, no issues. She was just so happy to be there. So it's amazing what these kids are willing to do.
It is.
All right, we got 2 more topics. I'm sorry, and then we can go on to everyone else. My next one was in-person meetings. So as you can see, there are 5 of us in the building now. So just wanted to explore the topic a little more, just because we now have students in the building. I know some people are not comfortable coming in, and I think that's okay. I think we've got to work on the technology aspect of it more, and potentially offer that committee the whole meeting as an in-person meeting. I know for our LGI, we can only accommodate, I think it was 35 people you had said, Dr. Lloyd.
Yes, and of course that would count the board. Board has to, is included in that number.
Well, then the administrators would be included as well. So I think, and Mr. Subers, I think maybe if you can weigh on that too, you know, what that looks like if we are able to offer Zoom for the public and offered with just the board and admin.
Some districts are already doing that where they have the board and whatever they were doing it when the number was 25. And the difficulty has been the technology to allow, so there's no interference with respect to the board communicating to the public and the public back. In one district, they had to resort to using headphones for the persons in person attending. But I think that that's something that Mr. Sanfrancesco can investigate. That's the real issue, is the technology and being able to facilitate the board being able to have its discussion and the board, the public being able to hear that. And then when it comes to accept public comment, vice versa. So
I think we had tried an in-person meeting before, and we were able to hear from the public, and we were able to speak together because we have that loud system in the LGI. I think the challenge was more so the camera angles and things like that.
Well, not only that, we were all in one room, right, testing it. We didn't have any of us on Zoom at the same time as the public was on Zoom. So I think that's going to be Mr. Sanfrancesco's challenge, is that a couple of us might be on Zoom along with the public, whereas maybe a majority of us are in the room physically. And this is an issue not just because of COVID. In LMP, we talked about board attendance, right? And whether we could attend via Zoom. So it goes beyond just this period.
I've participated in meetings in at least one district where they had board members both participating via Zoom and in person. And now it wasn't open to the general public at that point. It was still limited. But yeah, the board, it was in person with not all board members present. Some were participating via Zoom, and it worked out.
That's what we have to test.
I thought we did have one.
So we did test it. I
Yeah.
think we want to continue to test it, right? So
Yeah.
Maybe we can do it at the committee meeting.
Well, the count meeting on the 9th, I think it would be the best option to try it.
Yeah, I don't think it worked particularly well last time. So maybe we just think about how we set the room and the technology, because I think the biggest benefit of this has been having so many people be able to tune in on Zoom. All right.
So, Mr. Sanfrancesco, would you like to join this conversation? I see you turned your video on, and we did discuss this morning. So I see you feel the need to explain it yourself.
Sure. The last meeting, we tried too much. We had administrators there. We had presentations. We had to angle everybody because of the camera. I would like Mr. Deal and Mrs. Profit to come in one day and show you guys what we're thinking with the U-shaped, the distance, not to compare us to other districts, but remember, our technology is limited with one camera, and it's going to be the wide angle of everybody there. But the microphones, the volumes, that's fine. The communication with the public, we have that. We're going to put a confidence monitor in where you guys can see it sitting, a monitor where you can see some things. So I do want to at least get some, and more members can actually come in and look at this, but just all of us really need to think this out before we do this, because we are limited with the one camera. The microphones are good, the sound system's good, the Zoom we have. It's just a matter, if a board member is joining from Zoom, you will be just like this in public, but you only see a camera angle of the board sitting at that U table. You will not have this direct connection with everybody there. And that seems, in talking to my colleagues across the counties, the board members, right now you're all together in Zoom, but you will only see a Zoom of 6 members right there, and the other 3 will be individual. So it's just going to take you getting used to and trying out and seeing what we can do.
And Mr. Sanfrancesco, the social distancing, that was a good point, because you have to be socially distanced. So all the board members are going to be 6 feet apart.
Correct.
So making that single camera angle more difficult.
Right.
I think it's something we definitely want to consider and plan on trying, because the flip side of being able to see everybody, face to face, is that I think many of us who use virtual communications every single day in our corporate lives know that it's a good bridge until we get back to normal, but it is not a complete solution for interpersonal communication. And I think sometimes it does hamper the work of the board not to be able to be there in person if we could be. But it's a balancing act at this point, right? But we haven't experienced that other side of it to see, which is better. We tried that one meeting, as you pointed out, Mr. Sanfrancesco, but maybe we can plan a little better for this next one and see what happens.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that, I don't feel like we need to rush to try to just get in person and not have it work as well. But I do think we need to solve this for future board meetings for exactly what we talked about in LMP, which is just, in a world someday when we have a vaccine and we're in normal operating condition, we still want to be able to invite the public via Zoom, and we still want to have board members who are traveling participate it. So we just want to get this technology right. So I don't think we have to rush out and say, okay, let's all get in a room until you have it right, Paul, until you feel like you got the solution in place and we can still get the public, access.
And the one issue we do have right now is our LGI room is a lunchroom right now. So flipping that, putting technology in there, testing that right now is not an option during the day, because it is an educational lunch space as opposed to just the LGI room right now. So getting companies in there to look at that is off limits until kids are out. So we have to deal with the technology that we currently have. And Mr. Friel, you're right. We're going to outfit that room the right way. It's just a matter of getting through this crisis right now and doing it. So we do have a plan for that. It's the plan for now. That is what we should try, at least a committee meeting or a smaller committee meeting, like a legislative policy meeting or something like that, and see how that goes.
That's where the thought process was with the 9th, because it's a committee of the whole meeting. So it's not a true board meeting where we all have to be functional and we can't have any hiccups.
I just have a question about that. With the 35 people in the room, is that due to just the way the camera needs to be, or is that the entire capacity of that room under these rules? Like, are only 35 kids eating lunch there at a time? Or is that just the camera?
That doesn't apply. These gathering limits don't apply to students and school activities. Board meetings aren't considered part of those activities. Board meetings are subject to the general gathering limits. So it's 25% of the occupancy rate for that room would be what would apply to a board meeting, but it doesn't apply to students doing their school day activities.
And Mrs. DiMarino, the U shape with 6 feet will take up most of the front of the room. So that even limits the back of the room for participants even more with the 6 feet.
Well, you mean participants, you mean administrators and things, right? Because we're not even talking about.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Good enough.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Sanfrancesco.
Thanks. And then the last item was just the district's goals. So I'm looking at the way that the agenda is structured. I know that this has been up there now since we were doing our committee reports. And I just wanted to see what the board's thoughts were. We could have Dr. Lloyd present the action steps under each of the slides. It's up to the board.
Leslie, does it hamper us in any way to leave the goals out there till the next meeting so people can look at them? I mean, we all know what they are. We reviewed them. Dr. Lloyd presented them. I don't know. Would it be better to allow the public to look at them for another month? Does it create an obstacle for us in any way? I mean, my assumption is they'd be out there. People could email them on us. And essentially when they came up in November, we'd basically be an up or down vote, but that'd just be my thought.
I think
plus, I don't think Dr. Lloyd's just waiting for us to say, okay, these are the goals. She's already working on these goals.
Right. So are all of us. Right.
Yeah. So there you go. So to end any discussions about us not being transparent, let's be overly transparent, perhaps.
Is this
I'm
going,
fine waiting till next month.
is this going to inhibit in any way, Dr. Lloyd, if we don't approve these?
Not at all.
Okay.
I'm not waiting for a vote. We've already had to implement a health and safety plan and cyber and blended. And we're just,
unfortunately, it was an oversight, and that happens, and that's okay. We get it. So
yeah.
All right. So you just will not vote on that item.
So we will just hold on 13.1 then.
And the recording is available, you stated, Dr. Lloyd, right? Of the county?
Yes.
Okay.
It's up there already.
Good.
Leslie, do we have to approve that at all? Because it's on the agenda and we're not voting on it. Do we have to?
Do it to table?
Not to vote on it?
Mr. Subers.
I mean, you could, the
Table
agenda
it.
was-
Table it.
Yeah, you could just table it, would be the easiest thing to do.
Okay. When we get to item 13, we'll table 13.1. Do I have to have a motion to table it?
Right, yeah.
Yes.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Do we have to? Right.
Okay. All right, so then I'm done with board discussion topics. Sorry, I know Mrs. Stutzman wanted to touch on the naming committee briefly again.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate, because I know it was said so quickly, and I'm wondering if there are a lot of people who are waiting for comment to show their support. And I did just want to reiterate and thank everybody. We got a ton of emails in support of Mr. Pearson. They were really great, wonderful reads. So thank you for that. And we will reconvene the naming committee and present back at the November 9th CAL with our recommendations. So I want to make sure that that was just heard.
And so I can see from the list of participants that are here that there are a number of people that are waiting to make comment later on.
So thank you. Thank you for letting me restate that, because I know I just said, okay, yeah, done.
And Lydia,
That's not what I meant. And
Lydia,
John, I
to your
think,
point, I've never met Mr. Pearson, but I got to tell you, to have the impact that we've been reading about in some of these emails, very,
amazing.
it seems like he's a very impressive individual.
Yeah, they're really great emails. And then I think, Mr. Deal, you had something you wanted to comment about too,
No,
right?
actually, it was,
I'm going to pass the baton.
yeah, it was the goals. So I'm done.
Oh, good.
I did think that we should clarify. I don't know whether Mr. Friel or Mr. Deal wants to be the person to clarify, but the district has garnered all of the CARES Act funding that is available to it. That just, we have garnered all of the funding from the state, from the federal government, from Chester County that is available. And tonight I reported out about the $300 and some thousand we just received from Chester County. So Montgomery County might have released theirs earlier. Chester County just released theirs last week. So we've garnered everything that is out there.
And Mrs. Crumrine, just one question for you. Some of the expenditures that we had made on some of the equipment and PPE and whatever was unfunded, meaning that minus any grant money, it would have been funded out of the general fund, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So when that money comes in, it's not like we have $330,000 to go buy whatever we want.
No, we've already spent that money. It's
Money
just
that's spent,
a
right?
matter of allocation.
Right, it's designated for COVID specific things. It's not really going to have any impact on the budgets to come, but it is helpful. We're grateful.
Other than we don't have to divert other money to cover it.
No,
Correct.
that's
Yeah,
exactly right. We don't have to divert other money.
Right, and
helps
all
in
that's
our
public,
operating
right?
budget.
What we've received is made public and what we spent it on.
Yes, we've been making it public every time we've received it, so I'm not sure.
July 27th, right? Is that when it
Yeah,
was?
July 27th, we had, that was when we had the first discussion on it, because it had come up actually as a question in the meeting beforehand. So we purposely, addressed it in detail, and then Jackie published it. We brought it up in the finance meeting, even I know we had done it in June on the July 27th, published it. You know, I think, you know, Jackie, we'll just ask the same thing here. As this new money comes in, let's just republish the entirety of
Right.
the COVID
Right.
funds as
People
one
look for
thing,
that.
so people don't have to hunt through multiple versions of it.
Or
So
we'll
once
just
you
keep
have that,
updating. We
we
can
can get a
update the
full-
same form that's out there on the website. We can just update the additional money and say how we're allocating it. And when we meet in November during finance, we'll just reconfirm where it is and share it
Yep.
again.
Yeah. Okay. So we are going to have a finance committee meeting. We'll just throw that on the agenda as an update to the public, and we'll have the full CARES Act allocation of money that we came in and how it was allocated on the expense side. So if that's good for everybody. And then, you know, if you have any questions for the public between now and then, if you want to email us, we can make sure we get it on the November agenda and just address it ahead of time and put it out there. All right.
Sounds good.
Cool.
Any other board discussion?
I just wanted to bring up one thing, and we can maybe put it through to the COW. It's just, we talked a little bit originally last year about the Cyber Academy, you know, separate from what we're doing COVID, but non-COVID, the feasibility of actually doing a real online and a Cyber Academy, because the cost of cyber charters to the school district is, you know, we're up over $2 million right now. So there's a real potential value and an ROI if we explore, do we, O&J Roberts, put up a real cyber academy, and what does that look like? And there's work to be done on that from the board perspective. So, you know, and I think the first step is that feasibility, like what would it take financially to make it make sense? So what does it look like from a cost wise and design? And what would the student population look like to make that make sense before we do a deep dive and really look at curriculum and you know, all the other stuff? I think we have to do, I think, a first step there. So I just want to put that up to the board for discussion as far as getting a feasibility started on this.
All right. So Paul, are you looking for the Cyber Academy to be more of something we would make a profit from, or something that's more of a service? Right? Because if it's a service, we're not, you know, as concerned with the money, but if it's a cyber school for profit, meaning that the money that we make from the cyber school would go back into the school for whatever reason, which one would it be, a service or something we would do for profit?
I don't know. I don't think I thought about it that far. If we take it to the profit level of like, do we offer this beyond O&J or open it up? I just look at it as two things. We have a need for cyber from parents. There's a market for cyber for whatever reason that says that's a good fit for my student. So that's A.
Right.
So outside of COVID is, what does that really look like? How should that be designed to satisfy the needs of those parents? Because we're paying O&J Roberts every time a student goes out there, we're paying tuition, you know, either $18,000 to $33,000 that's going outside. It leaves the district, right? And if we can retain that within the district, right now that's worth $2 million. Is our starting line. Can we have it? Do we have what it takes to offer this? And then say, to the service point of view, do we design in an augmentation to our bricks and mortar services and say, hey, you know, we can open up Cyber Academy to accommodate and allow flexibility in students to go deeper, like an IEP and support, or like gifted program to add augmentation to go deeper dive and add gifted services, as well as maybe accommodate students with, hey, sports, or so they don't miss things and say, oh, okay, I can go back and review this, or I want to take first period and I want to do that cyber and then come in later, you know, for the late start. There's a lot of different ways and configurations. And I think that's one of the things we got to explore, Cliff, is I'm not sure, we got to define that, right? Yeah. So, and I think, but the first thing in my mind is like, is it even feasible? Like, even is it so far out of financial, before we go too deep, we should probably just get a litmus test of, is this close enough to be feasible for us to do it? Or is it going to cost $15 million and, you know, it's a pipe dream?
Oh, like that is a part of the our goals that we will be looking at next month. We have that on our goals under, you know, student growth and achievement. And yeah, obviously we need to test the feasibility of that. And part of that is looking at the success of charter schools in general, or charter schools, cyber charter schools in general, to see if we, you know, could, you know, feel that we should be looking at trying to produce a better quality project or, you know, product than that. But also, you know, as part of this is we do have a cyber school within our, you know, within the Chester County Intermediate Unit that does cost us a certain amount of money, and not as much as any of those charter schools do. But, you know, are we going to be able to produce something that would be less expensive than what we pay for Brandywine Virtual Academy? I think that's a very important question. I don't know any of those answers to that, but that is our, you know, our 1 or 2 year goal is to do exactly what you're saying and look at quality of this and the feasibility and all that.
To add to what Kathy is saying, I do believe that on a technology level, we have some interdependencies with Brandywine Virtual Academy. I mean, we've got entirely OJR teachers teaching our cyber academy, but I think we need clarity on that also, of how dependent our current cyber approach is on Brandywine Virtual Academy, and whether it makes any sense to decouple it, or if we should keep it coupled to that program because there are advantages there.
I'm not sure exactly what you're saying, Jennifer. I mean, the teachers at Brandywine Virtual Academy they're teaching the entire county.
Right,
and
I'm not talking about the teachers. I'm talking about the technology, the infrastructure.
Okay, well, I also think that that's fairly independent of anything we're doing here at Owen J. Roberts, as far as the programs they're using. I mean, well, they just started using, well, like they use OdysseyWare. I don't think there's any OdysseyWare anything in our district that we're using, or Edgenuity. I don't think
I'm
we're
just saying
using
we
any of that.
need clarity on it, because the presentations that I got at the CCIU said that, you know, essentially all the cyber academies that were being spun up quickly by districts, and this was a generalization, it wasn't specific to OJR, they were just saying that they had supported that. And so I just want to understand what advantages we got there.
Yeah,
Right.
it sounds like we need to take a deeper dive, because there are a lot of options. I mean, we can also offer cyber a la carte, meaning that, you know, we can offer foreign languages or a specific subject cyber, or have a full-blown cyber school. Now that people have gotten a taste of cyber, I think there's going to be a bigger market for it going forward. So maybe we can take a deeper dive, come up with different models and different costs per model.
Yeah, I think that's right, because I think you bring up a really good point. We could expand our offering, and instead of 4 languages, offer 6 or 8 or 10. You know, there's who knows? I guess, you know, who knows what the
Where to start,
right?
How do we start? What's the next step?
So I still go back to some type of feasibility here of like what are some of these economic models look like, to see if we're in the ballpark. You know,
So
like,
who does that? Are you saying we have to hire somebody to do that, Paul? Or
I don't know. I don't think we would necessarily. I think that I would like to benchmark what the real cyber academy, not these spun up ones for COVID, but, you know, start with a benchmark of here's the ratios, the student to teacher ratios in these cyber charters and cyber academies and others at public school districts that have done them. So we understand some of the biggest cost drivers are going to be our, you know, teachers and staff, and the technology that underpins this, right? And then we know that there's a break-even point in terms of numbers of students that are going to be utilizing this versus what number of students are using cyber academies outside of ONJ anyway, right? If we can capture that.
Paul, I'm just going to interrupt you really quick. There is a meeting on this coming up on Wednesday, I guess it is. I'm just checking my calendar here, about this cyber school discussion that we're having. So a lot of these topics are going to be talked about in detail in upcoming meetings. So we don't really need to keep going on about this now. I think that anyone would want to come to that meeting. This is on Wednesday. So we can kind of make sure that everyone hears all of the results of what we discuss on that meeting so that we don't have to just keep reinventing the wheel here. So just stay tuned. Wednesday, we'll be discussing this.
Is this a curriculum meeting?
This is I guess I don't know, is it technically a workshop?
Okay.
It's a part for the curriculum committee.
Okay. Well, so let's just, maybe then after that curriculum workshop, Kathy.
Well, it's really like the curriculum planning, like, you know what I mean? Like the curriculum, like we're going to be planning the curriculum chair and co-chair will be discussing, and it'll be an internal planning meeting on Wednesday. So we will be talking to you about, where we're going with that in the next agenda for I'm not really sure if we're actually planning on this for the Cal meeting or when, but we'll be discussing this at length and we'll be reporting back to you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm more coming at it from the finance point of view and just the.
Yeah, I know. And it's all tied together. So it's complicated,
Yeah.
but obviously the finances can't really be determined until we know, what, define what it is we're even looking at doing and, what kind of success we're having in our cyber academy now and BVA.
Okay. All right. We can table it and bring it back up, Ed.
Yeah.
after that.
I know everyone wants to talk about it for another hour, but just thought maybe we should move on.
You remembered that Dante has school tomorrow. Right?
So I was going to say, Mrs. Prophet, normally school board meetings don't go this long. And so I would like us, if the rest of the board doesn't mind, there's a good chance Dante still has homework to do. He had football practice after school. And I'd like, if we could, you don't mind if he were to sign off for tonight.
He's like, where were you an hour ago?
I'm sorry.
What took you so long?
Feel free to head out. I'm sure you have a ton of other things to do. We appreciate you sticking on this long.
And I would correct Dr. Lloyd that most of our meetings do go this long.
They didn't back in the day. Okay, back in the day when we weren't virtual, they didn't go this long.
Right.
Anyway, Dante, thank you so much. Good luck on Friday night.
Yes.
Yep. Good luck.
All right.
Thank you. It wasn't letting me unmute, but thank you guys. I do gotta go to homework, so thank you. But I will see you at the next meeting.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Good luck Friday night against Springford. All right, Mrs. Prophet.
All right. Do we have any more board discussion? No? Okay. I think we discussed a lot. All right. Item 11, old business. Do we have any old business? No?
No old business.
Okay. Item 12, new business. All right. 12.1, motion to approve personnel matters consent items 12.2 through 12.11. The board will make a motion to approve the following personnel matters, which are items 12.2 through 12.11 as action consent items. Any approval of appointment of personnel under these action consent items is expressly made contingent upon the district's ability to conduct and/or participate in the related program and/or activity in light of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. In the event district schools are 1, closed or providing modified programming, 2, unable to conduct or participate in programs or activities due to the direction or recommendations of outside agencies, including but not limited to the Pennsylvania Department of Education, the Pennsylvania Department of Health, the Governor's Office, the Chester County Health Department, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the Pennsylvania Interscholastic Athletic Association, et cetera, or 3, the district administration determines not to conduct and/or participate in any program or activity to ensure the safety of students, staff, and the community. The district shall not be liable to compensate personnel appointed herein for such programs and/or activities. In the event some programs and activities are conducted and/or held on a limited basis, compensation for personnel shall be paid on a pro rata basis commensurate with the percentage of the program season activity that was held and during which students participated. The decision to cancel, discontinue, and/or alter programs and activities shall be at the exclusive direction of the district administration as previously authorized by the board pursuant to the district's health and safety plan. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. DiMarino, do I have a second?
Second.
All in, any discussion?
Only a question on 1210. Those units are all part of the collective bargaining agreement, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Good. Thank you.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right. Item 13, which is new business. So 13.1, I need a motion to table this.
So
So
moved till next month.
Yeah.
Do I have a
Second.
Dr. Milnazak? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I don't
Any-
think you need a all in favor to table, do you?
Yeah, you do. You need a vote. It's usually
do?
no
Okay.
discussion, but you do need a vote.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. All right. Item 13.2, approval of phased school and athletics reopening health and safety plan updates. Approval of the phased school and athletics reopening health and safety plan updates as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Deal, do I have a second?
Second.
Sorry, was that you, Mrs. DiMarino? Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. 13.3, approval of policies for second reading. Approval of policies for second reading as recommended by the Legislative and Policy Committee for their August 10th, 2020 meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Deal, do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Munson, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. 13.4, authorization for employees to act as agents in the signing vouchers and checks. Authorization for employees to act as agents in signing vouchers and checks for the 2021 fiscal school year as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Deal, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. DeFore, any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Motion passes. 13.5, approval to establish a student activity. Approval to establish a student activity club in accordance with the provisions of Section 511 of the Pennsylvania School Code and School Board Regulation 122A or 122B as presented. This approval also provides the establishment of accounts within the student activity accounting system when applicable. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Deal, do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Booth, any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. 13.6, approval of student activity clubs and organizations. Approval of club advisors and student officers in accordance with the provisions of Section 511 of the Pennsylvania School Code for the 2021 school year as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Deal, do I have a second?
Second.
Dr. Milnazak, any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. 13.7, approval of professional services and or maintenance agreements. Approval of professional services and or maintenance agreements as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Deal, do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Booth, any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, item 14, public comment. Information, proposals, and statements from individuals or delegations pertaining to any item. Speakers are to indicate your name and township of residence. Speakers will be limited to no more than 3 minutes. Please understand this is not a time for dialogue with the board. Rather, the board will listen to all comments and consider them in future deliberations. And then just keep in mind, our school board email address is there if you would like a written response. And a guideline for anyone that is new to our meetings, there is the raise hand function, and you'll just need to state your name and township of residence. And then I just want to reiterate that these are items relating to the school district.
Mrs. Prophet, the first person is Nicola Whitlock.
Okay.
Nicola, you are unmuted.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to first thank this opportunity to address the school board this evening. My purpose tonight is to serve as the voice for the community in regards to having the OJR athletic training room named after Ron Pearson, the first and the original athletic trainer at O&J. Mr. Pearson was not only the first full-time athletic trainer for our school district, but he was the pioneer in high school athletic training in our region. Since 2015, community members and friends of the Pearson family have been trying to get this recognition in front of the school board. How and why this has taken so long is not our focus, but to recognize the overwhelming support that this request has now and continues to grow. Recently, through a Facebook group page to rally the support for naming the athletic training room after Mr. Pearson, I started to calculate just how many athletes alone that Mr. Pearson has touched just through high school sports. I guesstimated a potential of 600 roster spots per school year, times 35 years of his career is 21,000 athletes. But his ability to connect to any student was his gift to O&J. He treated all of us like his sons and daughters and wanted us to reach our fullest potential. As athletes, we were blessed to have Mr. Pearson keeping us healthy physically and mentally, but also in the classroom. His health class was legendary and engaged his students to think and participate in evaluating their own personal philosophy of life. Right now, you just have to look at your OJR faculty to know the impact that Mr. Pearson has had on generations of students that have passed through these halls. To name a few: Tommy Barr, Corbin Stoffus, Mark DeFusco, Adrian Andres, Shelley Strock, Marcy Stanson-Marsh, Chuck Nestle, our own superintendent, our own president of the school board, and our current athletic trainer, Elizabeth Hoffbecker. He has shaped each one of them to be educators and why they wanted to come back to be part of our OJR community. I feel compelled to share just a few of my own feelings and experience with P. My first interaction with Mr. Pearson was as a 7th grader. I had complicated corrective leg surgery that kept me out of my sport of swimming, and I was an angry, bitter 12-year-old. And he had me in the pool as soon as my cast came off. And this was 1980, and aquatic rehab was just at the forefront, and he was cutting edge with that rehab with me. I was a cross-country athlete, much to the chagrin of my orthoped and my parents. And I ran all 4 years, and he was at the top at Agony Hill for every cross-country meet at home with my dad, making sure I made it to the top of that hill.
That's 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mrs. Whitlock. I appreciate all your kind words about Mr. Pearson. And as Mrs. Stutzman stated, we will have the presentation from the naming committee at our Cal meeting on the 9th. So definitely tune in there to see what's presented.
Mrs. Prophet, the next person is Ava. Ava, please state your full name and township of residence, please.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
This is Carrie Culp from East Coventry Township. I think I already know the answer to this, but I was just wanting some clarification to the previous back and forth that was happening during board discussion surrounding the ideas for any potential plans for future cyber academy offerings. I was wondering if we could just get some clarification. This Wednesday meeting that was suggested would be happening. I'm assuming that is not something that's open to the public. So I'm just trying to determine, in light of some of the discussion that was happening, when will the public be afforded the opportunity to hear the future discussions ongoing at the board relating to that feasibility? And when will we have the potential for some input into that planning as well?
Sure. So do you mind if I touch on this for a second? basically each committee can have a planning meeting, and it's where the committee chair and sometimes the co-chair meets with the admin. They talk about what the next meeting is going to look like. And that's a public meeting that they're discussing. So I think what Mrs. DiMarino is referencing is they're going to have a meeting. She's going to have a meeting with Dr. Soder to talk about what they'd like to discuss in the next curriculum instruction meeting. And then just remember, any of our work that we're doing is going to be public work. So whether or not that's going to be at the next Cal meeting on the 9th, or if Mrs. DiMarino is going to call a curriculum meeting because it's going to be a longer discussion, that's really up to what they decide on at that planning meeting. But it sounds like it's just the very preliminary. The public will definitely have time to weigh in and give feedback. But I think it's just the very basic preliminary meeting to discuss steps here. Is that correct, Mrs. DiMarino?
And as I was saying that, this was kind of like a 1 to 2 year goal. So definitely there's going to be a lot more discussion to come. But this was our initial look at, to talk about, like, as you said, what we want to be discussing in future meetings.
Okay, Mrs. Prophet, the next person is M. Petroselli. Please state your full name and township of residence.
Mark Petroselli, South Coventry Township. Calling about Ron Pearson. I'm a 1978 grad. I'm presently a volunteer assistant coach of the high school wrestling team. I've known Ron for a long time, 1969 to 2004. He obviously was head trainer. That really doesn't tell the story time frame ways, but the 5 things that really stick out to me about Ron Pearson and why you should name the training room after him are passion. I mean, he was one of the most passionate guys I ever saw from a training standpoint. He cared about the student athlete. It doesn't matter if they were varsity or JV. He was always there for them. I mean, his energy level was unmatched. His nickname was Jet for a reason. He was out on the field or out on the mat or wherever he needed to be pretty much quicker than anybody. And his energy level was unbelievably high. His dedication to the student athlete is second to none. He also put a whole bunch of time into his craft. He even took time in the off season and ran off season conditioning programs for all the athletes. This time of year now, different teams do their own thing, but Ron ran them for all the athletes way back when. He even took the time out of his busy schedule to help my kid get ready for a J-Rob camp, high ankle sprain. He had him ready in 10 days to go to a pretty high intense camp. And he did that out of his own free time. You've named, I guess, the football field after Hank Burnett, the track after Dave Michaels, well-deserving both, great guys. But in my humble opinion, of all the great coaches and people that have been involved with OGR athletics over the last 40 years, I think Ron Pearson by far had the greatest impact on the student athletes, not only at Owen J. Roberts, but also the competitors. He just didn't fix the OGR athletes, but he was out there for the competitors as well. And again, very passionate about what he did. So I hope the school board does approve naming of the training room for Ron Pearson. And I appreciate your time and your dedication as well, because this is almost 2.5 hours and I'm sure you got a little bit of time to go. So best of luck the rest of the night and thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate the kind words about Mr. Pearson.
The next person is Mark Wolfrey. Mark,
Good
you are
evening.
muted.
Yes,
Name
good
and
evening.
township of residence, please.
Yes, my name is Mark Wolfrey. I'm from South Coventry Township. I grew up as a neighbor of Mr. Pearson since the time I was 5 years old. I experienced most of what every other athlete knew about Mr. Pearson, of his dedication to the students, and he was a tremendous athletic trainer. But our story I wanted to tell the committee today is one that happened 7 years after Mr. Pearson retired. I and my wife had purchased the house directly across the street. I was moving back to the neighborhood I grew up in. And the house that we were moving into needed a lot of work, tremendous amount of work. And we had a contractor, Jimmy, was a dear old friend of our family's. He was doing most of the rehab. And one day he and his assistant were trying to hook up a trailer to his truck. and it was full of about 2 tons of refuse from the house, and it swung around, crushing Jimmy between that trailer and another trailer that had a front end loader on it. And about halfway up his thigh, he screamed so loud. I was in the backyard, and we all came screaming, running. And even Mr. Pearson, who was in his house, and those of us know him, he's very hard of hearing. He heard the scream also and came jetting out of his house. Mr. Pearson took charge immediately, made sure the rest of us didn't kill him, pulling him out from this, which it took about 10 men to get this trailer off of the guy. Mr. Pearson picked Jimmy up and pulled him out from between the trailers. As we were able to just pull enough pressure off Jimmy's leg as he did it. Mr. Pearson proceeded to do first aid on Jimmy until the helicopter came and landed in the cornfield above where we live, and they were able to airlift him out of there to a trauma center. Mr. Pearson, to this day, is always there. I see him in the community. I actually witnessed Mr. Pearson helping Mark Petroselli's son. When he had that high ankle sprain, I saw him, and it's not the only alumni that brings their child will bring them to Mr. Pearson and say, hey, what do you think? Because they learned to love and trust this man for so many years. They will bring them to him to see, what do you think about this? What about the diagnosis? What do you think about the training regimen? And Mr. Pearson's always willing to help anybody that comes there. And I'd say I would love to see something bigger and grander named after him, but training was absolutely his passion. And naming the athletic training room after Pearson is the least the community can do for this man, and giving him so much of himself to the community for so many years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilfrey, for sharing. That's a remarkable story. And I think as we learned from emails, there's a lot of things that Mr. Pearson did for our community, not just our students. So thank you for sharing.
The next person is Joy Van Ruler. Please give your name and township of residence, please.
Yes, hi, Joy Van Ruler from South Coventry Township. I'm just directing this back to the keynote address for the Equity in Schools program that you, Dr. Lloyd and Leslie Prophet, were able to watch. I'm hoping that other than beside the board and the schools with the teachers and the faculty, the staff, can you extend that invitation to watch that keynote address to the general public?
I think, Dr. Lloyd, we can ask. I mean, I think you've been asking to see who else we can extend this to. So it's PSBA. So we'll keep working on it.
The next person is Courtney Osmond. Courtney, name and township of residence, please.
Hi, Courtney Osmond, West Vincent. First, I'd like to thank the board, the administration, and staff for getting our kids back to school. It was like Christmas morning in our house this morning. My 4th grader was up at 6 a.m., had her bed made, was dressed and ready to go out the door for the bus. So it was great to see the excitement. Also, I know there's been a lot of talk about transparency. I want to thank Mr. Smith and West Vincent for their very much open transparency. There have been numerous phone calls and Zoom meetings, Google meetings. We know exactly where we stand, where we're going forward. And I just want to thank the staff for keeping us informed. And then my 6th grader was listening to the board meeting, and he had a question that I said I would ask. He's heard conflicting things about gator masks and whether that is a school decision, a principal's decision, or the board decision. They were looking forward to wearing their gator masks. They're comfortable for them, and they were told they were not allowed to. And then we've heard some conflicting things. So he would like to know what the rule is on mask wearing and what's approved and what's not.
So, Mrs. Osmond, we don't typically answer questions, but this one we will. We're going to be talking about this aspect of our health and safety plan at the committee of the whole. Every committee of the whole, we provide updates. And so I'll be discussing with our board members their thoughts about Gators. Our health and safety plan currently does not include Gators. And I know that this is something that students prefer to wear. So stay tuned. More to come on this in about 2 weeks, I think, is when we'll be discussing Gators with the board.
This is probably the next person is Becky Capano. Becky, full name and township of residence, please.
Hi, my name's Becky Capuano. I'm actually speaking on behalf of my mom, Thea Lewis, who is a resident of North Coventry Township. However, she's 81 years old, so this is a bit late for her. My father was a former president of the school board, so I wanted to thank you all for your public service and for helping. But just like my dad served the public and that you are too, Mr. Pearson also has. So I'm echoing the comments that many have made in support of Mr. Pearson and dedicating the training room for him. I am one of 3 children who went to O&J. My brother and sister also graduated from O&J. We were all 3 sport athletes, graduating in 1980, 81, and 84. While we were at O&J, we all benefited from Mr. Pearson's care and love and support. And you didn't have to be an athlete to experience this care and love and support. Non-athletes did as well. And I think if you're reading through all the emails that you had received, you'll hear story after story about how wonderful Mr. Pearson was and how much he contributed to all our lives. He really did offer unparalleled support to the student athletes and the students of O&J and other schools as well. His support and energy and guidance and dedication to all of us is felt even to this day. And just anecdotally, I relied on Mr. Pearson in the early 80s, but as late as 2 months ago, I called him for medical advice when I broke my nose. So Mr. Pearson, I want to thank you for all your service to us, and I hope the school board recognizes what you've contributed over the 35 years of your service. Thank you for the time, and thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher your last name, Mrs. Capiano, and I apologize to your mother. Our meetings are, for some reason, running really late with this whole virtual setting.
For the next person is Andrea Manival.
Hi, this is Andrea Manival, East Vincent Township. So during the board discussion, I believe you were talking about the blended virtual students tonight. Attendance coding was mentioned about, I think my understanding was when students are absent, they need to take a virtual day, because they may have a cough or runny nose, whatever. And my situation is slightly different, but it's at least regarding Cyber Academy students, because that's all I know. My daughter's in 9th grade, and she's forgotten to do her attendance quiz by 12 o'clock 2 times. The first time was the 6th day of school, and it was like 2 p.m. when she wrote to her teacher. And, of course, the teacher explained it was too late. But when I checked Skyward, her attendance record says unexcused, unlawful. I understand that you need to code attendance, and she was late in getting in her attendance quiz. However, it's really, frustrating to me as a parent and really upsetting to my daughter as a freshman who, is trying to do the best she can to actually have that in her record. And none of my kids have ever been excessively absent, during regular school. We don't pull them out for vacations. We follow the rules, and I'm sure most families do. My daughter's in every day. I know she's in every day in her Google Meet from 7:30 in the morning straight through to 2:15. So I would ask, though, if you're looking at coding for attendance in overall, that you look at this particular code. I was told by attendance, the office, because I called, that it's just a code. It won't be in my daughter's record, not that like colleges will see it or anything. But I would hope that you can certainly understand that unexcused, unlawful, the unlawful is the really part that really gets me, does not accurately reflect what she's done. I mean, late or forgot to do attendance quiz, something I think would be better. And my understanding too is that they get lots of calls from parents on this issue. So I would just like to ask you that if discussion continues on this, that you consider this situation as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your suggestion.
The next person is Heather. Heather, is full name and township of residence, please.
Heather McCurry, East Coventry. So I have a number of topics, but I'm going to touch on the one that touches my heart the most, and that's the kids. I hear a whole lot of talking to you guys, with you guys tonight, but no action. And I want to know, what is the justification when Governor Wolf says you can have 20% of the kids, the people in the stadium, which is 1,000 people, while you're only allowing 650 people in? I think it's a disgrace that Springford tries to get more people in and even lobbies to get more people in when the governor said it was up to the local districts. I cannot imagine the heartbreak of the kids sitting in the parking lot trying to watch their friends at a game and then leaving because they're so upset. I was lucky enough to be offered a half pass for the game 2 weeks ago. Had I known there were actual kids in the parking lot, I would have given that half pass to them. As it was, I took a pretty good count when I was in there. The band played first. I didn't see them. Then the band parents pretty much all left. And I would say that there were maybe 250 parents watching. Why can't you print out the passes and have the game workers that are being paid stand at the entrance gates and count up to 1,000? Springford is allowing their kids to have a real homecoming at a soccer game. They are even raffling off 135 tickets to each of their classes. I want you on the board that have kids, elementary kids in this school, or any age kids, to imagine the heartbreak of the kids that cannot get in to watch their peers play that football game. There is no excuse for not doing the absolute best for these children. Absolutely none. Promises were made, many. Party politics don't belong on the school board. Yet all I listen to is party politics when we're on the board. That's all we hear. You guys talk about tech. It's so embarrassing. You never had a meeting where you said, oh, we got 300,000. Maybe we should spend it on the ability to have our tech in the school. Because so here's the thing, right? If school board members refuse to meet in person, then why are any of you sending the children back to school or the teachers in person? Honestly, I wish you guys would sit there and say, we can put 1,000 people in the stadium. We're going to send them in. Last year, they lost prom, they lost graduation, they've lost homecoming. The rate we're going, they're going to lose prom and graduation again. You could at least on one day, open it up and let them sit in the stadium on the visitor side and fill it to the capacity allowed under the law, or not, however you want to consider it, of 1,000 people in that stadium. Please do the right thing for those kids. Or think about the golden rule, right? How would you like it if somebody was doing that to your child? How do you know what lies in the future for you? You owe a fiduciary duty to the people in this district, and that includes all stakeholders. It includes the kids, it includes their grandparents.
That's
Please
3
do the right
minutes.
thing.
So Dr. Lloyd, I think, was it last football game, there were 980 passes given out, and our max was
980 was our maximum, and we were 20 shy of 980. And so we have a responsibility to keep everyone safe. We must uphold those the governor's guidelines, because we risk losing funding if we violate those guidelines. And I cannot stand before this community and explain why I lost funding because I allowed more spectators than were safely permitted. And so we will not go above those guidelines, not for a football game, not for a volleyball game, not for a wrestling match, you name it. We will not violate those guidelines, because I cannot in good conscience lose funding for this school district. And I must keep everyone safe. We cannot create a super spreader event. Our athletes are safe. Our coaches are safe. And we're able to bring 2 parents for every athlete to the game, along with the media, and we can open a concession stand. And that got us to 960 people that football game. Did some people leave? Yep. But we're not going to stand at that gate and keep count. And what happens? What happens if we max out and the quarterback's father doesn't get to the game? How do I say no to that person? I can't, and we're not going to do it. We're going to put student safety first and foremost, bottom line. And we're not going to go against the governor's order. It's as simple as that. I know it doesn't make everybody happy, but we're not going to make everybody happy. It's just the way it is.
Mrs. Prophet, the next person is Colleen Blute. Colleen, you are unmuted. Maybe not.
Sorry. Dr. Lloyd, I'd like to thank you for saying that. That meant a lot to me. Thank you. Good evening, board members, Dr. Lloyd, Ms. Crumrine, staff and residents. My name is Colleen Blute. I am currently an elementary school teacher, a retired cheerleading coach, a retired band front director, and currently a twirling coach. I am a resident of North Coventry Township. I had 2 opportunities to view the new cheerleading squad. Their cheers looked equivalent to the community cheer squads, the Red Knights, the Coventry Wildcats, and the Pottstown Pal cheerleaders, who are ages 6 to 12 years old. I'd like to know what happened to the quality of the high quality of the middle school cheerleaders sent to the high school and last year's high school cheerleading squad. The cheer girls are young adults. They're not 6 to 12 years old. They should be doing age-appropriate cheers, dances, and routines. Should any of these current cheerleaders desire to go on to the collegiate cheer level, their coaches need to up their game to provide the appropriate components for Division 1, 2, 3 colleges. The coaches need to set the bar higher and be present at all of the games, especially when there's only 5 games. I had the opportunity to watch the squad at the Perk Valley game. I wasn't sure if I was watching Boyertown, Coatesville, or Owen J. Roberts, because you see the cheer squad was wearing red, black, and white. And I'm very sure that there was a decision made not to have black as part of a uniform for any reason. So why were the cheerleaders wearing black leggings? Friday night, the cheerleaders were up at Upper Perk. Their uniforms were horrendous. They didn't look like a team representing Owen J. Roberts, at least not the Owen J. Roberts that I know. A cheer squad looks and acts like a team. It's all or none. Everyone dresses in the same uniform, but not so on Friday night for the Owen J. squad. There was a mishmash of apparel and hair gear. The group had white, red, and gray upper body attire. And then they had on their skirts, but they also had on red warm-up pants that, I'm sorry, could have fit a football player, but they had no red jackets to match. Why are our girls here at Owen J. Roberts wearing substandard warm-ups when surrounding school districts with less revenue have a higher quality warm-up than our girls? Also, taxpayer money being spent on cheer coaches who aren't really sure what they're doing and don't expect enough from their girls. These are top-notch cheerleaders, or could be if they were given the right experience. It's been proven.
That's 3 minutes.
Thank you.
The next person is Nicola Whitlock.
I already had my moment, but I appreciate the chance to speak again. But you guys have been going way too long, so thank you anyway.
Well, we didn't know if we wanted to finish since your 3 minutes were up and you were cut off mid-sentence, and so we didn't know if you wanted to finish what you were saying.
Oh, that was very kind of you. I just wanted to end in saying Mark Wolfrey shared the story about Mr. Pearson and his heroic call to action with the crisis that was his accident at his home. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. But one of the other things that I wanted to share, during Mr. Pearson's retirement, there was a huge dinner at Sunnybrook in his honor, and many people, including Becky, who remarked about her experiences with her family and Mr. Pearson as athletes at OJR. There was a quote that I thought that everyone should hear, and that was Mr. Pearson describing his experience, and he always said that, "I always tried to make my trainer's room a safe place, a place for students, athletes, coaches, and even parents. In there, it was a time for them to be real, for them to be themselves." And I think that just really sums up how we all felt about Mr. Pearson and what he gave us as a haven in his athletic training room as athletes and students. And our former principal, George Carlino, also said it well, saying, Ron was sensitive to the students' physical pain, but equally sensitive to their emotional pain. He established close, supportive relationships with them, and he was special to them because he knew that they were special to him. For a man of limited stature, he has left a towering legacy that will endure as long as sports are played at the OJR High School. And that's what I wanted to share at the end. And I'd like to be able to just reach out to Lydia again and just give her a few more details about what the community's willing to do to support getting this named financially. It's already secure, and just know that those last details are ready to go if this gets board approval. So again, thank you for your time.
Thank you for sharing. Again, if you want to attend that meeting, I know, sorry, I was going off. It's 10 o'clock, in case you guys. If in case you want to attend that meeting, I know sometimes we open up for public comment. So Mrs. Stutzman might open up for public comment there if you want to add anything in after she presents. So.
This is probably the next one is Heather McCreary.
So I actually did want to echo the naming of the training room after Ron Pearson. He was an incredible guy. I was not an athlete, I was in the band, but I would think that we could actually do this and do it quickly and that it not drag on the way the track did, and also the embarrassment in the community about trying to name the stadium after Hank Burnett. I think that there's been an overwhelming amount of support and there should not be any more delay on that. And the other thing I want to touch on was I wanted to say about the equity study, and I think that's great you guys are doing that, but again, I wish that something would actually happen with that. And I think that a concern when I stated in the beginning about transparency and the public input, that again, we seem to be very focused in this community only on the people that have children in the district. And we need to remember that about 80% of the people that live in this district do not have kids in the schools. And they should also be included in that community in the study if you're going to do something with equity. They have a lot to add, especially the alumni in the district that could help out, like the ones that contributed regarding the issue with Mr. Rott, and it would be helpful to be inclusive and to actually reach out and include those people. Thank you.
So just to reiterate what we discussed, so it is going to be staff, students, and then it will be at a public board meeting, and then there will be public listening tours. So no one is being excluded. And like we said, there's a lot of work to be done here. And no one is not taking action. So look out for all this stuff coming your way.
This is Prophet Colleen Blute.
Just had one final statement to make in regards to the stunts, dances, routines, and attire that the girls were wearing. During this pandemic, it is a total injustice to all those cheerleading girls, especially the seniors, who have lost a part of their fall cheer opportunities because of a lack of ability by coaches to organize uniforms, get them the things they need to have, and make them top notch like they were 15, 20 years ago. That's what we need back in L&J cheerleaders. Thank you.
Thank you for your opinion. Any other public comment?
This is Prophet. That ends public comment.
Thank you. Item 15, board discussion and follow-up. Any additional board discussion? No? Everyone's good? You're all talked out.
We're all talked out, yes.
Talked out.
All right.
Mrs. Prophet, you probably need to clarify the reason that the board was late coming, starting the meeting. Oh, okay, okay.
We were late because we had an exec session.
Right, we didn't start the public meeting. We just were late. Okay.
All right, item 16, board requests for information. Any requests for information? Nope. All right.
Oh, Dr. Lloyd, if we do have another company that we're looking into for surveys, yeah, send me the information.
I will.
All right, thanks.
I will.
Anyone else? Going once? Going twice? All right, I'm going to adjourn. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night.
Night, everybody.
Thank you.